Welcome. It's lonely at the top here in the 6th and Peabody studios. No Jonathan Hutton. I'm Chad Withrow with you on this Thursday live downtown Nashville, 6th and Peabody studios with Old Smoky Moonshine and Yeehaw Beer. This is OutKick Hot Mic. We have a fantastic show planned for you today. Guests include Trey Wallace from OutKick.com to talk some college football with us. Armando Salguero, NFL insider, senior NFL writer for OutKick.com, will join us as well. And Davey Hudson's going to get weird. He's weird every day. He's especially weird on Thursdays. Well, at least he will be on this Thursday. Again, no Jonathan Hutton today, but no problem, at least for today and tomorrow, because Kelly Stewart, Kelly in Vegas, on with us today as a special guest co-host. Back after performing 3 hours of the show last week, Kelly. That is a long show. That's a lot of time. Thank you so much for actually being willing to come back and join me again today.
Absolutely, Chad. I had an absolute ball. Great time, great show. The 3 hours just flew by.
That's the goal every day, right? We want people that are watching, that are listening. We want it to go by as fast as possible at the end of the day, end of the workday for a lot of people. Kelly's been hosting shows already today. She's been working. She's ready to go. She's got a studio set up in her home, looking great. Everything sounds fantastic. So we're going to get right into it. And we're going to start with someone who can't get into anything right now because he got into too much on the court, and now he's suspended indefinitely. Of course, I'm talking about Draymond Green of the Golden State Warriors. Suspended indefinitely for his – I'm trying to think of the right way to describe what happened with Jusuf Nurkić. But it was kind of a backhanded, not backhanded, but swatting backwards, open-handed, harder than a slap, maybe less than a pie face, maybe a combination of both. Either way, he knew exactly what he was doing, even though he claims I was just trying to sell a foul and I was flailing around and didn't mean to hit him. We all know better, Kelly. We know that professional athletes are pretty coordinated. Their eye-hand coordination is good. And when they swat back like that, they know exactly where the player is. He knew exactly what he was doing. And because of that and a lack of remorse now, Draymond Green is suspended indefinitely. Do you like this move by the NBA? What would you like to see happen with Draymond Green ultimately?
Suspended indefinitely, I think, is interesting. I think it's very vague. I actually hate when whether it's universities or professional teams do that. It just leaves it open to a lot of misunderstanding, right? But what we do know is, like you said, Draymond Green absolutely did this on purpose. And should he be reprimanded for it? Of course he should. Now, does the suspended indefinitely mean that he is going to go through some sort of protocol, right? Is Adam Silver going to sit back and watch and say, okay, we know this is going to be some sort of NBA protocol that says, here's how many days he's going to be suspended, games, months, seasons, whatever it looks like. I don't know. I just don't like how vague it is.
Yeah, and it says he's going to have to fulfill some specific parameters that the league's going to set out for him to come back. I said this yesterday, Kelly. He's the opposite of Morgan Freeman's character in Shawshank Redemption, Red, who every time he went up for parole, he said, I'm a changed man. I've seen the error my way. I'd love to go back and talk to that 18-year-old dumb kid and prevent him from committing that awful crime. And I'm going to be something that's good for society if I'm let out. And every time they kept stamping denied. And finally, in the end, he says, I don't care what you do. I'm too old, and I'm out of time anyways. So you go ahead and do whatever you want, Sonny. And then they said, okay, you're accepted. You can leave. Draymond Green's the opposite of that. He denies that he's done anything wrong at any point. And if he showed some remorse and said, I got to get this under control. I go to 11 way too quickly. I let my temper get the best of me all too often, and I need to change. I think the league may be a little bit more lenient on him, but now we're going to have some sort of NBA court-ordered anger management course. I guess he's going to have to partake, and he's probably going to come out and have to lie about being remorseful about it because we know that he's not. And then this whole thing sort of seems forced in the end. I think they need to set out a specified amount of time that he's going to be out. I said it needs to be at least 20, 25 games. And people think that's crazy with what Ja Morant got, but this is a repeat offender status over many years in the NBA. And it's not just the fact he keeps doing it. It's the fact that he never really says, I'm sorry, or takes any responsibility for it. He said he was sorry to Nurkić on this one, but he didn't say he was sorry for doing it because, I didn't mean to do it. I don't apologize for accidents, and that was an accident. And no one believes that, even Steve Kerr as head coach.
Of course not. But I think the ultimate thing is that this is a pattern. Draymond's gotten away with it for so long of not apologizing, not admitting fault or things like that. So now I wouldn't be surprised to see the NBA come down on him a little bit harder than maybe if this was his first time and he looked and said, hey, hands up, I was wrong. I screwed up. I was in the heat of the moment. That was absolutely uncalled for. The end. I kind of thought that these teams had PR people working for them, that these guys had agents that have PR people working for them. But I'm beginning to think that's not the case.
I saw one argument. I forget who posted this, but it's a pretty good plan. They said what the NBA needs to do now is suspend Steve Kerr because Steve Kerr has enabled this. Last time he said when he got Rudy Gobert in a chokehold that it was inexcusable. That's the first time he ever came down hard publicly on anything Draymond has done. And then after this time, he kind of goes into this whole rant about we've told Draymond we need him, but didn't really say that he did anything totally wrong, just that he needs to control his emotions better and keep his poise. And it's frustrating because we've told him how much we need him. That would be an interesting signal to the Warriors if they suspended someone other than Draymond, the head coach, and said, hey, this is now your responsibility too. You continue to play him. He hasn't gotten any better at this, so we're going to suspend you.
That's not a bad take, Chad. It's not a bad take at all. I would have to think that they're going to need to be some extenuating circumstances. Unfortunately, we know the NBA. They love Steve Kerr. They're never going to do that.
Kelly, would you consider me to be a nice guy from just interactions with me? I try to be friendly, right?
Oh, you're definitely friendly.
Nice
you're
guy.
You're definitely a nice guy. I would say you're a nice guy.
You took way too long to get to that yes, longer than I wanted, but I'm glad you finally got to the yes.
So we do a show together.
Yeah.
On the show, you're a nice guy.
Yeah.
No problem. But because I've hung out with you and Clay and Hutton in real life, I had to think about some of those interactions. And there's just one that sticks in the back of my mind that I go, maybe Chad is not such a nice guy.
Yeah, maybe. But for the most part, at least I try to be nice, right? I think it's good to be nice.
You absolutely are.
I think it's good to be nice. I think it's good to try to be kind. I think it's good to try to leave a favorable impression on people. That's let's just get that out of the way now. That is a net positive in life if you can be friendly to people and leave them feeling better about themselves and try to be kind and nice to everyone. This is what I hear about Kenny Payne, Louisville head basketball coach, all the time. He's such a nice guy. We don't want to see anything bad happen to a nice guy. People at Louisville love him because he's such a nice guy. Players seem to like him because he's such a nice guy. It is time, though, for Louisville to do the nice thing and put this guy out of his misery professionally and fire him because it has gotten out of control at Louisville with this basketball program. A very proud, historically really good program in Louisville, by the way, in a basketball hotbed. And this is how bad it's gotten. Karan Davis is a junior transfer player, came in from the junior college ranks to Louisville this past offseason in his first year with the program. Yesterday, this is an official statement from the University of Louisville. University of Louisville junior guard Karan Davis has informed the program that he intends to transfer. We support him and wish him well in the future. There's one problem with this statement. Apparently, they didn't run it by Karan Davis because he posts and he's reposting the statement from Louisville saying, I didn't express to anyone at U of Louisville that I wanted to transfer. I never asked to transfer. I enjoy being a Cardinal. The fact an official statement was released giving false info is disheartening and sad. Again, Davis committed to Louisville back in January, and he's been with the program since. Now, this is the strange, but you thought that was strange. It gets weirder with Karan Davis and his interaction with the program. Davis played in one exhibition game. From that point on, he's been with the team one time. That was back on November 10th in a game against Chattanooga. Since that point on, he's not been on the bench with the team. When asked why Davis wasn't in attendance, this is after a November 15th game against Coppin State, Kenny Payne said the following, quote, "It was my decision not to have him come today. He's not in any trouble. I will not address it right now. because this is about the guys who just played. Again, let's try to follow the logic here. It's my decision, but he's not in trouble. Also, he's not with the team. No explanation. So he didn't return to the bench in the New Mexico State game. And then this is what Payne had to say. Quote, "Me and Karan got to sit down and talk about what's best for him and what's best for us. It's my decision. Really, no real update. That's it." Then after a game against Bellarmine, a close win for Louisville on November 29th, this is what Kenny Payne had to say about Davis. "I have nothing to say about Karan Davis. Karan Davis is not in trouble. I didn't know he was at the game." This is when he was spotted in the stands, in the arena, with other fans during the game. "I didn't know he was at the game, but if he was, that's fine with me. He's a part of this team right now." Now, let's try to follow the thought logic of Kenny Payne and what he's saying. It was my decision to not have him with the team during a game, but he's not in any trouble. I don't want to talk about this right now. Oh, he was in the stands. I didn't know that, but he can do that. Also, he's still a part of the team, and he's not in any real trouble. Then Louisville says he decided to transfer, and then Davis says, "No, I've not decided to transfer." This, by the way, comes after Tyler Johnson refused to play the first half of a game because he had the wrong tights under his jersey and under his shorts. And this was allowed by the head coach, Kenny Payne. This also comes in the midst of a 4-6 start after an atrocious first year as head coach. And they just lost at home last night by 12 to Arkansas State. Kelly, this is past the point of just wins and losses. This is a guy who's lost total control of every part of his program. You don't see this in high school basketball that often. This level of guys coming and going, doing what they want, sitting in the stands with students. Oh, but he's still on the team. There's no real decision made. Statements put out that are false because the player, it wasn't run by him. I don't know what to make of it other than at this point, Louisville needs to do Payne a favor and put him out of this pain and fire him right now and allow some interim to take over because this is a total mess.
It's beyond a total mess. And in fact, it makes me feel so much better about my alma mater's basketball woes last week. You know, this is tough. You mentioned Louisville and the expectation there of their basketball program. It is having me question, right? We're following the bouncing ball here of the timeline of events, and a lot of things just don't add up. And a lot of times, athletic departments, universities, we do not get the full story. So obviously, there is more to the story here. But if someone has not got control of their locker room, if there is an outside factor as to why he's not playing, the athletic director should be doing his job here and investigating further. I'm guessing he has already done so. So I would agree with you, Chad. I think there's only one option here, and it is to get rid of the common denominator.
It's just crazy to me that this would be allowed at any school, and the lack of any clarity or communication on what is happening. Again, let's try to separate the two, right? It's easy to say these things because they were awful last year. They were losing to teams that Louisville should never lose to and losing badly to them. That started to happen again this year. They've had some close calls. I think they beat St. John's. They lost close to Texas, who's in the top 20. They lost a close one to Indiana also. So they've been in some games with some good teams, but they continue to come up short, and then you lose by 12 at home to Arkansas State. But it's the mix of everything. It's the losing with the fact that you got a guy in charge of the program that doesn't seem to be in charge of anything or anyone within the program. And I hate it because everything I've heard about Kenny Payne is he's a great dude and a really nice guy, and everybody's rooting for him to do well. But it feels like to me, giving the guy a buyout at this point to no longer be the coach is almost doing him a favor instead of subjecting any Louisville fan, not that they're going to have great attendance the rest of the way, but I've been to games in that arena, the KFC Yum Center, the Yum Yum Center as we like to call it. It's a great place to go watch a game. They have a passionate fan base. A ton of people normally show up. No one's going to show up for this stuff. And it's definitely better than your K-State situation right now, given what we opened the show with last week when you joined us, Kelly. I'd far rather be Kansas State right now with the one player exiting than what's going on at Louisville.
No, you're not wrong. And I think we went, a little into public relations, if you will, during the Draymond conversation. And you'd have to think that Louisville has some sort of PR to save some face here. I mean, when a player who is still apparently on the team, is sitting in the stands and someone tweets a picture of it. That's not a good look, especially when the fan base is being left in the dark, similar to how I felt last week. When you're left in the dark and you're either an alumni, you're a donor, whatever that looks like, you want answers to your questions. I'm surprised we're not seeing more Louisville fans getting fired up here over this.
I wonder if we took a poll of Louisville fans, this would never happen, but how many of them would be in favor of bringing Rick Pitino back, even given all the problems with the NCAA and with Italian restaurants and everything else that happened with Rick Pitino? I bet it would be 85, 90%. If you gave Louisville fans the option of Kenny Payne and what they're watching right now, or go bring Rick Pitino home and back to Louisville, they're all taking Pitino, right? Even with the baggage.
It's always interesting how fans are willing to overlook winning programs, or willing to overlook, we'll call it indiscretions, if you will, for winning basketball or football games. And I kind of understand that. You know, we spoke about it last week with my alma mater, and I said, hey, look, this is what happened. The kid got in a little trouble. He's on a diversion. Through the eyes of the court, we should let it slide. If you're going to let a normal student let it slide, you would. But I would have to say, I mean, my rival fan base is the University of Kansas. They just let everything slide.
Porcini's a terrific Italian restaurant in Louisville, by the way. I've actually been there, and it is great. So Rick Pitino was right about that. We're right about this. Trey Wallace brings it every week. Talking college football. SEC schedule is out. We'll talk about it all with Trey Wallace coming up next.
McGregor for president in Ireland. What do you think? The UFC star has floated the idea of running for office in the past, but now seems more serious than ever. This week, he took to X and explained why he would be a better alternative than the current competition if he runs. He looked at all of the candidates, and he said all of them with unbreakable ties to their individual parties' policies, regardless of what the public outside of their parties feel. Now, these parties govern themselves versus govern the people. Then you have me, 35, young, active, passionate, fresh skin in the game. I listen, I support, I adapt. I have no affiliation, bias, favoritism toward any party. They would genuinely be held to account regarding the current sway of public feeling. I'd even put it all to vote. There'd be votes every week to make sure I can fund. It would not be me in power as president. It would be the people of Ireland. It would be me and you. Honestly, from these two posts alone, he's already said more to me. I'm not a resident of Ireland. I won't be voting in this election, obviously. But as someone who would be voting in any type of election, this is the type of things that I would want to hear from a candidate. So even though I won't be voting, he's got my attention. He's speaking very thoroughly, very eloquently. I respect everything that he's saying so far. Now, McGregor has also been outspoken in recent weeks about the politics in Ireland following the stabbing of 3 children in Dublin, in which the suspect was claimed to be a foreigner. Now, the UFC star had a lot to say about Ireland's immigration policy, which occurred simultaneously, you can remember, with the mass riotings, which allegedly landed McGregor in hot water with tabloids reporting that he's being investigated now for inciting and hate speech, which, of course, makes absolutely no sense and paints an even poorer light on the politics going on in Ireland currently. Now, according to a poll that he put up on X, it seems like people are really taking the prospect of his running for president seriously. He asked people that if he did run, would they vote for him? The answer overwhelmingly was yes. There was nearly 220,000 people voting at the end of when this poll closed. Connor came in with 88% of the vote. Honestly, again, I've already mentioned that I think he'd be a good candidate, but why not? He's already truly laid out such an eloquent case for himself. He is fresh skin in the game. He has no self-serving interests. As a former UFC champ in the lightweight and featherweight division, which, by the way, he was the first UFC fighter to ever hold 2 simultaneous titles, he knows what it means to fight and also to win. That is a mentality that not everybody has, but not everybody can have. And also, he's young. He's outspoken. He's not afraid to stand up for what he believes in. And he has been showing us sports fans that for years. He's a proud countryman. He already has made plenty of his own money. So there is no need to get involved in shady politics or corrupt deals. It reminds me of somebody else who used to be president, not in Ireland, but here in this country. Ringing any bells to any of you out there? In fact, I actually remember Conor McGregor calling Donald Trump the USA GOAT on MLK Day back in 2020. Listen, that says a lot about what he looks for in a politician, and I can imagine would hope to emulate one day if the occasion does indeed arise.
We are back, rolling right along on Hot Mic here on the OutKick Network, live from our downtown Nashville 6th and Peabody studios with Old Smoky Moonshine and Yeehaw Beer. I'm Chad Withrow. Kelly Stewart, Kelly in Vegas, guest co-hosting today. Kelly, I got to see this. I saw you drink water during the break. It appears that you were drinking water out of a vase. That is the biggest water glass I've ever seen. Maybe it's just because of the camera angle, but I saw you pick that thing up, and I'm like, man, you are super hydrated and ready to go. That's an impressive glass. Good job.
I think you're hilarious. That is a normal size drinking glass. It's just very thick.
It looked like a vase that you were drinking. Like you literally took the flowers out of it and just started drinking the water out of it. I know someone else who's always very hydrated. That's Trey Wallace with OutKick.com, our senior college football writer for OutKick.com, on with us right now. Trey, how are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good, man. We are December 14th. We've got quarterback news today. We're getting closer to the playoffs. Bowl game starts Saturday. Just a normal week, right?
Normal week, and transfer portal news. And that's where I want to start. And there's a couple of different areas we can go to, but Riley Leonard now officially heading to Notre Dame, Trey. What do you make of that news? And also whatever's going on with Ohio State. Kyle McCord out. Cam Ward does not look to be going to Columbus, which many thought originally. Looks like he's down to Florida State and Miami, which leads me to ask the question, well, what does Ohio State want to do at quarterback if they lost the guy they deemed the starter throughout the season, and now they're going to stick with someone else on campus, but they didn't want that guy to – I'm very confused about what's going on at Ohio State. So let's start there. Riley Leonard at Notre Dame and what you think is happening in Columbus.
Yeah, I think the Riley Leonard and Notre Dame thing had been brewing for a while now. I mean, there's a reason why he put a no contact when he entered the transfer portal. This was going to be his spot. Last year, it was Sam Hartman from Wake Forest. Now it's Riley Leonard from Duke. This was they seem to have things lined up. Marcus Freeman does the way that they want, how they're figuring out the quarterback situation. And then, when something happens like this, when a quarterback knows his destination, that means it's been, in the works for a month or so. These agents do a really good job of contacting schools and seeing what they need. So I look at Riley Leonard. I think it's a great spot for him. It's interesting that two former quarterbacks are now coming back to Notre Dame, one to play lacrosse, the other to get his degree. That's Tyler Buckner, and that's Drew Pine from Arizona State. Not going to be playing football right now. So it works out for Riley Leonard. And I think Marcus Freeman, this is a big addition for this offseason. He'll be fine with his ankle injury. And then, the Ohio State thing is complicated to me because you got a quarterback in Kyle McCord that goes 11-1, loses the Michigan game. It was, it was close. He did good in the second half. He led them back. He came within a possession of tying that football game up. But it just felt like under the circumstances where he was told, hey, you're not the bona fide starter next year. You're going to have to fight for this position. I think that's something that turned Kyle McCord off. And he felt in talking with some folks after battling through what Ohio State did all season long into that last game against Michigan, he thought he deserved to be the starting quarterback and to be named the starting quarterback first in the bowl game and then next season. And when that didn't happen, he decided, let's go look around. And Nebraska was a choice. Doesn't seem like that's going to be the case now. Maybe a school like Syracuse, but it's crazy how things can go from highs to the low in the transfer portal really quick.
Well, and speaking of not maybe high to low, but low to high, Nebraska's season, which has been a lot like a lot of seasons recently for the Cornhuskers, 5-7, but get to the offseason, and this past week they're juggling either Kyle McCord or Dylan Raiola, the number one quarterback in the country, who's likely to decommit from Georgia and go to Nebraska. And now, Trey, does it look like with McCord's news that he's not going to end up in Lincoln that we're going to see Matt Rule end up with Raiola, whose dad played at Nebraska, as the number one quarterback in the country?
It sure sounds like it, Chad. I mean, it's difficult for some.
Huskers are back, baby. They're back.
It's difficult for Georgia fans to like wrap their head around a kid that would move across the country to the state of Georgia to play high school football in the state of Georgia, recruit for Georgia for a whole year and a half, and then all of a sudden be like, wait a minute, Nebraska called. And it's like, okay, like I get the legacy part of it. I understand that. I get that his uncle is an offensive line coach, but we're talking about Georgia compared to Nebraska. And that's not a shot at Nebraska. We're just talking about where you're at right now in college football. So the fact that there is that talk, and let's also be real honest with each other here, it's not all about the legacy and having family that attended Nebraska. It's also about the NIL money that comes with this. And Georgia, they're having to make a decision right now. We're going to pay Carson Beck to come back next season. Do we want to give in to what his demands? And then you look at the Dylan Raiola situation where it went south right after Kirby Smart left his house on a Friday night. So you wonder what that is. That's probably Nebraska giving them a call and saying, hey, look, we can offer you this. Oh, and by the way, Kyle McCord's probably not coming here anymore. So now you've got a clear angle towards that starting position.
Yeah, Trey, I wanted to jump in and kind of carry over to that because my head has been spinning around basically for the last year and a half, right? I went to what I would call a less profitable school. Well, I should take that back. They're a profitable school, but they have less big donors, right? You mentioned Nebraska. I grew up watching them in the Big 8. They have boatloads of money, just like Texas's and the Oklahomas and the Georgias and the Alabamas of the world. So here I am trying to navigate the NIL that is essentially the wild, wild west. Can you kind of get into that a little bit further? Because when I hear you tell me that there's agents for guys who haven't entered the transfer portal yet, they already know where they're going because there's a no contact order. That sounds like tampering to me.
Well, okay, so let's break it down a little bit. If you've got an NIL agent, that NIL rep is allowed to go out and talk to schools. I mean, if I was an NIL rep right now, I could pick up the phone and call North Carolina, Notre Dame, whoever I wanted to, say, hey, look, there might be a chance that this quarterback enters the transfer portal. Are you interested? Now, this is not like picking up the phone and talking to a collective who has a bunch of money laying around that are willing to give these Power 5 quarterbacks that can make a difference at a school. But it is a little sneaky. Like, we tampering was the word over the last 2 years. Like, we go back to the Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban argument that went down 2 years ago. Tampering was such a prevalent thing that we got into a situation where they found loopholes around it. And the loopholes around it are having guys that used to be runners for agents, guys that are not certified to be agents, but they're handling NIL deals. And they're handling them for some of the top players in the country. Now, if you're smart, you go out and get yourself a real agent who can handle this, find yourself the real money. But some of these guys have relationships. So it's reaching out through high school coaches. It's reaching out, hey man, I used to play with that linebacker, my first year somewhere else. Let's DM him. Let's get him involved. Maybe mention it to the coach, and then we can go from there. So a lot of the players that you are seeing enter the portal right now, I think that their homes are already there's a destination already set for them in a sense, besides big name quarterbacks, running backs, offensive linemen, and whatnot. And the unfortunate part of this whole thing is with over 1,300 players in the transfer portal right now, Kelly, you're going to have 500 to 600 players that do not have a home after this transfer portal ends. So what happens there? You got to walk on. You got to figure out a way on a team maybe in the spring. It gets complicated, guys. And now we're sitting in a spot where money is such a key factor when it comes to where these guys are going to go. Because don't forget, like most of the 12 quarterbacks right now that are in the portal that are big name, are all of them going to go to the NFL? No. They're going to want to get their payday right now. And college football collectives are ready to open up the checkbook.
They sure are ready to open up the checkbook. And the SEC, I think, is ready to open up the checkbook for a lot of those guys. The schedule released today, and I was elated. Now, full disclosure, I mentioned I went to a Big 12 school. I'm not some SEC fan, but this whole dichotomy with Texas and Oklahoma coming in here, we're going to see Georgia in Tuscaloosa game 1. Like, that hasn't happened. I'm kind of really curious to see what your thoughts are on the SEC schedule, which games you're most looking forward to this year.
I think it is a beautiful thing when the SEC decides, okay, you know what? There's a little dull time in the middle of December before a bowl game. So let's announce what's going to go on in a year from now. Okay. And then, by the way, all these people are going to go get their hotels and they're going to book. I saw something last night for that Alabama-Georgia game. It's going to go down. Hotels are already going for $4,000 in Tuscaloosa. And we're not talking about 5-star hotels here. We're talking about the Econo Lodge. No offense to the Econo Lodge. But I'm just saying, in general, you look at this, it's the excitement level in college football. And in the SEC, they want to see, okay, what's Texas and Oklahoma? How's that going to affect our schedules now? When we move to this 8 games, what does that look like when it comes to rivalry games? Like, you look at Florida's back half of their schedule next year. They have at Tennessee, Kentucky versus Georgia, at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, then Florida State. Billy Napier picked a really bad time to be on the hot seat going into his 3rd year with a schedule like that. So,
and he's losing some of his best players in the transfer portal right now.
I know, Chad, and it's interesting to see how the locker room is played out in Gainesville. And then when you look at that schedule, I mean, we can't forget, like, they have to play Miami, Texas A&M, Mississippi State in the month of September. Those aren't gimmies. Those aren't gimme wins. You got to go on proof. So it could be a long season. So that's what, Kelly, that's what it is when we look at it right now is, okay, there's a couple of coaches that might not be around after 2024. What's that schedule look like for them and how they can survive? And on the other hand, the big time matchups that we're going to get, the Alabama and the Georgia, we're going to get Alabama, Oklahoma, or Tennessee, Oklahoma, you name it. It's the excitement of college football, and the SEC really knows how to put on a show.
Trey, I think in terms of the transfer portal and the effect on college football, I'm going to highlight a couple of programs and their approach. We've seen, as you mentioned, Florida, they're on the downside of it. They're losing some of their top guys in the portal. I look at Kentucky and Ole Miss and what they've done the last 2 years, and this is clearly a concerted effort by both programs to say we aren't going to compete with the best of the best in high school recruiting, but we can get the NIL funds together to be the top dogs in luring in top talent from the transfer portal. Lane Kiffin has basically, he's living in Knoxville right now, recruiting guys off the portal. You've got, once again, Kentucky last year made a splash with Devin Leary, Ray Davis. They've got Chip Trainum coming in from Ohio State. They've got Brock Vandegrift coming in at quarterback from Georgia. What do you think about the approach of those two programs who are very similar historically, Trey, where they're not really going after the top high school talent, but they are getting involved with some top transfer portal guys?
It's interesting to see the shift in philosophies at some schools. Some schools are going to go after the high school players are going to develop. Look at Georgia, look at Alabama, those type of schools, high school players develop, they'll be ready in 2 years type of ordeal. Kentucky's Ole Miss, there's other big time schools out there doing the same thing. They need the quick fix. So you go into the portal and you open up, okay, look, what positions do we need? B, what can we afford in the NIL market space that we're in right now? And you look at Ole Miss. Ole Miss got a commitment from former Tennessee defensive back and former Oklahoma defensive back Key Lawrence just 30 minutes ago. So you're adding to your team in the way that you think is going to fit right now. Not saying they're not going out and they're doing the high school recruiting, but we're seeing it kind of slowly back off a little bit where players in the portal are so valuable to come in with that 3-year experience or 2-year experience, and they're willing to pay what they need to pay to make sure this happens. And to be, for a team like Mark Stoops, like, look at their quarterback situation. Yeah, you said Brock Vanderbilt. Don't forget, okay, Will Levis was a transfer from Penn State. Devin Leary was a transfer from NC State. It's pretty wild to think about, but Kentucky most likely will not have a quarterback they recruited out of high school that has played in the last 6 years. So it's just different dimensions the way this is going at it. And you could probably say the same thing about Ole Miss, the way that they went out. Jackson Dart, Spencer Sanders. You look at how this is gone about over the past couple of years. It's not shocking to me. It's certain teams knowing how to handle the portal compared to others and maybe needing it more.
Trey Wallace, check out all of his work, OutKick.com, all of his great works. Got stories up right now about Utah's interesting NIL exchange that's happening, memories of Mike Leach this week being the 1-year anniversary of his passing, and also check out the Trey Wallace podcast at OutKick.com. Trey, always a pleasure, man. Appreciate you hopping on with us.
Chad, Kelly, thank y'all. You'll have a good rest of the week.
I appreciate it, Trey. One thing to keep in mind with transfer portal and recruiting, lost in the shuffle, a lot of guys who are borderline 2- or 3-star high school players not getting an opportunity at Power 5 schools now, because instead of taking a chance on those guys, the Power 5 schools are always going to go to guys that are 20, 21, 22 years old at a lesser program that they can take in the portal, as opposed to taking a chance on those guys. So that's one of those cause and effects thing maybe people weren't really paying attention to. Texas is down a quarterback. We'll tell you who when we come back. This is Hot Mike.
It depends on certain things, but I feel like now it's like a teammate. Like, that should be your partner, your teammate. Like, I'm not cleaning all the house all the time because I'm not your mom.
I agree. We're double income, no kids, so I really like a partnership, but I don't want to take the trash out.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to do that.
She takes the kids, I provide. Very traditional.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that more young people should do that?
Yes, very much so.
What is it about like a motherly quality that you like?
It's worked for thousands of years and it still works today.
I like being girly. I'm a girl and I like being girly, so I like traditional to girls.
Okay, well, according to the 7 Hermetic principles, one of those being the law of gender, gender manifests on all levels, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all levels. Throughout the cosmos, there's gender. I don't know, it's a light. It's a book I read called The Supreme Way of Men or Women or something like that, and it spoke on how whether it's 2 women or 2 men, there still has to be someone who's masculine, someone who's feminine.
What would you spend on an engagement ring?
I'm not an engagement ring type of person. But if she wanted a ring, I'd probably spend like 20 on it.
20 what?
1,000.
20,000. That's a lot of money.
Big and shit.
You gonna get that lady a real answer?
No, for real. Ain't it how much she make though?
Price, I didn't really care. Size, absolutely. Had to be big enough it could be seen, and I didn't want like a basic ring. I wanted like eclectic, like vintage looking.
Okay.
So we did a custom order to do my ring.
I didn't have a preference. I just had a gold preference, and he kind of took it from there.
And you trusted him. Did he crush it?
Oh, yeah, he crushed it.
I've been spoiled thus far, and so I don't think I could ever go back from what I received last time.
Okay, so high standards. That's good. What are the standards?
Okay, it was 5 carats,
Okay.
and it was beautiful.
Mine was way too expensive,
What's way too expensive?
like $45,000.
You probably went with a real diamond.
Very much so, yeah.
Do you think that that's kind of a flex for the guy? Like, is the engagement ring, is the engagement ring only for the girl, or do you get to watch other people look at your girl's ring?
Solely for the girl. Solely for the girl.
You don't get any enjoyment.
Couldn't care less.
Red flags in dating, because obviously you found each other. Did you have any icks that you overlooked, or is he perfect?
No, he's perfect. We had a nice night out at the bar, fought over a toy shark, and that's how it all got started.
What don't you like? Red flags.
Cheating, lying, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in a woman?
Honesty, respect,
in love for herself.
Some green flags are loyalty and trustworthy. Red flags are seeking attention from other women.
Jealousy, probably biggest thing, especially being around other girls all the time and having other girlfriends. That would be the number one thing, is jealousy.
Red flag is they're on their phone too much. Green flag is they're on their phone a lot with you.
Well, look for loyalty. That's it. I'm 24, so it's hard to come across that like when you're young. So that's really all I look for, really, honestly.
What were deal breakers?
If she was broke, I know that sounds crazy, but for real, if she was broke. Cause like it's like, yeah, like I don't want to take care of a motherfucker. Like I want to equal.
We're back. It's Hot Mic across the OutKick network, live from downtown Nashville, 6th and Peabody Studios, with Old Smoky Moonshine Yeehaw Beer. Jonathan Hutton, well-deserved couple days off. He's going to be back with us on Monday during this holiday season. So, good friend of ours, Kelly Stewart. You can catch her with Clay Travis on The Fade as part of the OutKick network as well. Kelly in Vegas, she's on with us right now. Special guest co-host today. Kelly's a gigantic college football fan, much like myself. Malik Murphy, Texas quarterback, was Quinn Ewers' backup, was put into duty this year because Quinn Ewers' injury. He is in the transfer portal. That probably won't shock too many people, given the situation with Ewers possibly coming back and Arch Manning, the man in waiting for Texas. But, Kelly, I do laugh at the statement from Malik Murphy on this, and I understand where the kid's trying to come from. But you can't have it both ways in this statement. He says, and I quote, about leaving before the playoff, right? He's a guy who started games for Texas this year, that is leaving before his team is playing for a national championship to get a jump start on another program in the transfer portal. He says, quote, I'm super invested in this team, everything that we've done along the way and all the work we've put in together. It's hard to walk away, especially at this point during the season. It's nothing against Texas at all. I'm doing this purely for me and my future. Part of me likes that honesty at the end of it, but I would have a hard time, even if I wasn't going to be in the game, I wasn't assured to be in the game, walking away from a team I spent that much time with before they play for a national championship.
Not only that, Chad, the portal doesn't close till after the national championship. Wouldn't you love to have a national championship ring? I would also argue to say if something does happen to Quinn Ewers in either one of those games, the playoff game or the national championship, if Texas was to make it, he would be the trigger man for the Longhorns, not Arch Manning. So this is going to put Texas in kind of a precarious position as well, because we know that they brought back Quinn Ewers a little earlier than they originally wanted to. But hey, he played lights out, not only against Texas Tech, but also Oklahoma State. I got to watch Malik Murphy in person versus my Wildcats. I don't know if he's going to get much better of a school than the University of Texas. I think more importantly, he's worried about the playing time. I find it very interesting, though, that these guys get their few minutes of fame and then are off to the next. And that's kind of what is disheartening to me about the whole portal and players being bought off of rosters for NIL money.
Yeah, well, I was going to add to that too, Kelly. Like, one of the biggest issues you have there is if you're Malik Murphy and you know, I want to get the bag for next season, I can't wait too long, or else all these other top position or these top schools are going to already have their quarterback, to where then I'm not able to go play for a team that I have a good opportunity of winning at a high level with anyway. So it is a difficult situation for him, but I'm with you. Like, this is an opportunity you're probably never going to get again to potentially play for a national championship. And we know you're the backup behind Ewers. So
And to me, that is the one reason that you would do this is there's some coach that's pressuring you saying, if you don't come to campus now, I'm going to go into the portal and get another guy and replace you. But, I mean, call their bluff on it. And if you're Malik Murphy, and as Kelly said, we all know these backroom deals are being done for NIL and everything else. I mean, what's to stop you from signing an NIL deal, saying you're going to go somewhere for the money that's being promised to you, and just leaving right after the playoff? I don't get any of this. I think someone is bluffing. If you really want Malik Murphy on your program, Kelly's right about that too. You're going to a lesser program than Texas. So they're in desperate need of Malik Murphy is what I'm guessing. They can wait until you either beat or lose to Washington and then either win a national championship or not, and then you can go to their campus and you can have this all done, signed, sealed, delivered before it happens. Just like there's ways to go back room and make sure that you're getting the NIL deal done, you can do this also by saying you're going to go to a program. I don't get it. And while I'm not going to be the guy that crushes the kid for plainly stating, I'm doing this, and this is his quote, I'm doing this purely for me and my future. I'm also not going to be the guy that celebrates that, because what do we love about team sports? It's about the team. And people's going to come back and say, well, what about the coach? They can do it to them. I get it. It's still, you're a part of this team until the season's over.
We're also going to see this happen more moving forward as they expand to 12 teams in the playoff.
You're saying more teams leave before they play in the playoff game?
Well, more players are going to be abandoning their team as they have an opportunity to play in a playoff game unless they alter the transfer portal window, which, I mean, they've been maneuvering that around over the last couple of years since that's been implemented.
I hate it. I don't know where you stand on this, Kelly, but I hate the idea of that. I get the bowl game stuff now, and I hate that
Do you
too.
Though?
No, I
the bowl
hate it
games
too.
used to mean something.
Yeah, I hate
the bowl
that
games
too.
used to be exciting. It was a big deal to go on a trip. It was a big deal to get all the swag and to have a great time with your team. It's not that anymore. I'm a gambler, right? So here I am, day of the bowl games being announced. Vegas puts the lines out. You're supposed to get to work. How can I get to work when there's over 1,000 kids in the transfer portal within the first week and a half? How can you get to work when half of the guys say, hey, I'm opting out. I want to go to the NFL, or at least have a shot to do so and don't want to end up getting hurt? It has gotten to the point where I'm almost wondering if any of these bowl games are even going to matter. The 12-team playoff is going to have to be expanded rather quickly to keep people's interest peaked.
Yeah, I don't know why it has to be like a boomer argument for someone to say, just stick to your team commitment through the end of the season.
But that's not the generation here. That's not what the precedent that's been set.
You're right. It's also a lot of our generation, and you know who I'm talking about. A lot of people who cover college football that feel like it's blasphemy to say anything against a college athlete and say that they're making the poor decision. The Jay Billises of the world are always going to side with the student athlete, right? It's never a coach's fault. It's always the coach's fault, always the administration's fault, always the NCAA's fault. But where we all know, because we've all been there too, when you're 18 to 22 years old, you're going to make dumb, selfish decisions. And there's a lot of dumb, selfish decisions being made. And if you want to make a selfish decision and put it under the guise of, I'm just doing what's right for me, I'm doing what's right for me right now, that's fine. But I'm not going to go out of my way to celebrate that. Because when we celebrate team sports, we celebrate the team. I celebrate the guys who say, you know, I made a commitment through this. I worked out all winter, spring, summer with this team. I'm going to go to the damn ReliaQuest Bowl and have a great time. And I'm going to play if the coach puts me in, and then I'm going to enter the portal after that. Hey, hats off. I celebrate the player that does that. I don't think it should be taboo to say that's the right thing to do in this era of college football. But some will say that, you got to do whatever's best for you and nothing else. But I disagree. Hey, the Pac-12, at least the remaining Pac-12, Oregon State and Washington State, they're doing exactly what's best for them, and that is hoarding $61 million in revenue. That's 15% of the $400 million they're going to make this year. They've made the decision, as the two voting members left of the Pac-12, they're not going to distribute that at all. Now, that includes those two schools not receiving their share of the proceeds either. But they're doing this, Kelly, and I totally get it, to ice out the teams that left them and the programs that left them, because they ice them out by leaving without Oregon State and Washington State. Makes total sense to me.
I think it's tough. I understand. It seems kind of like a bad divorce, right? I'm going to keep the couch that you love so much just to keep the couch.
None of us are getting anything. You're not going to get anything. I'm not going to get anything. I'll burn this house down. That's what they're saying.
Exactly is what it feels like. And it is tough because I really started to fall in love with these two schools when I moved to Las Vegas because they are such fun underdogs. They were fun to root for. You know, Oregon is Oregon, Washington is Washington, but the state schools always had my heart. So I felt really bad that they got snubbed, and we know that they're probably going to end up at a game of 5 program or conference, and that is not fun either. So I can kind of see while they're holding their ground and trying to prove a point here. But I mean, how much we're going to tie up in legal fees trying to do this?
Well, and you're also shooting yourself in the foot by not collecting your some of it as well. I kind of respect the pettiness of it if you're them, right? Like part of me really gets me going to think that, you know, screw you, that you left us. We were the laughing stock. We're the ones having to defend ourselves against ESPN when they make fun of us as you guys go and get your cushy new home. Some more than others. I think Cal and Stanford are probably looking around saying, we're going to the ACC. Does that make a lot of sense? But
no, not whatsoever.
You also need the money. So it's a tough decision to make to say we're going to get nothing and we're going to force all of you to get nothing, and that this money is just going to sit there in some trust until we decide what to do with it. And I guess the we in this would be if they basically just annex the Mountain West Conference and make it the new Pac-12 and do what the Big 12 and others have done, the Big 10, and just cherry pick from the Mountain West the teams you want. Then they distribute that money to them as an enticement and as also part of their buyout to get out of the Mountain West. I think that's what they probably want to do. And there's some evidence of that, Kelly, because Washington State and Oregon State, they're already in conversations with the Mountain West Conference to join them from a basketball standpoint.
That would make the most sense. I actually didn't think about that play because we did see that with, you know, the Big 8 turning into the Big 12, taking some teams from the Southwest Conference. That is a real possibility, especially seeing teams like UNLV have better football programs, San Jose State. Right? There's a couple of teams in there that I don't know if I would say by any means that they're Power 5 conference schools, but with the right amount of money, we've seen plenty of schools be able to achieve those dreams, especially from a basketball standpoint. That's what I think the Big 12 really did when they helped break up the Pac-12 is they went after the basketball schools. They were like, give us Arizona and give us Houston prior to that when they cherry picked some teams from the AAC. So I would not be surprised to see the Mountain West at one point in time was a conference, hotbed for basketball, trying to rejuvenate itself with Oregon State and Washington State.
Well, Brett Yormark loves basketball. Clearly, he wanted to add UConn and Gonzaga to the Big 12 also. So the guy clearly a hoops fan. You're a Big 12 girl. What do you think about the new Big 12 and some of the teams that will enter the conference next year? From a football perspective, what do you make of it? And are you excited about any one of these programs?
Initially, no, I was not excited. We saw UCF come in. We saw Cincinnati come in, Houston come in this year. And you're going, yeah, somebody's got to be the bottom feeder. I understand. But then you look at, again, the Houstons of the world, the Cincinnatis of the world from a basketball perspective. And so you kind of had that. All right. So when they first said, all right, we're bringing in Arizona and Arizona State, I thought, okay, great. We're going to add an okay football program and a really great basketball program. Let's do it. And then the Arizona Wildcats shocked the world. Winning 9 football games this year. I think they are going to be the fun one to add to the Big 12, not only from a travel perspective, right? When you grew up in Kansas, you want to go to fun other destinations, and sometimes Texas just doesn't cut it. Ames, Iowa, not so much fun. Going to Tucson, going to Scottsdale, like those Arizona schools, I think are going to be rather intriguing. Obviously, Utah, we know this year was a quote unquote down year for them, but we've seen that they play smash mouth football. I think they're going to be an awesome addition as well.
You can only go to Ames, Iowa, so many times and have a good time. You probably, what would you say? Have you been 2-3 times to Ames or more than that, Kelly?
As an adult, I have never been to Ames, Iowa.
Do you feel like
As
you
a-
saw everything you needed to see in the few times you went as a college student?
As a kid, I remember going. It was always right around my birthday or my mother's birthday. We would play Iowa State in November, and it was always cold and always terrible. And what did they do? They always lost.
Yeah, it's I've got a couple guys that go to church with me that went to Iowa State, and they don't even say anything nice about it. When I ask them about their experience in college, they love it, but they're like, yeah, I wouldn't advise you to ever go to it. It's not some place that should be on top of the list to go for college football, but they got a good college basketball tradition. The Dodgers, they have good tradition, and part of that tradition is what led them to landing Shohei Ohtani. Move over Lionel Messi. Ohtani replaces Messi in one category, plus Big Ben. He thinks the Steelers are done as a dynasty. The old legacy of the black and gold and the Steelers over, according to Big Ben Roethlisberger. We'll get into all that and more when we come back. This is Hot Mic as part of the OutKick Network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement, and today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
We're back. Second hour of Hot Mic as part of the OutKick Network. I'm Chad Withrow. As you can see, no Jonathan Hutton today. He'll be back with us on Monday. Well-deserved time off around this holiday season. So Kelly Stewart, good friend of ours, doing great work with OutKick. The Fade with Kelly Stewart, Clay Travis, or Clay Travis and Kelly Stewart. I don't know which order to go into. I know they both host a show together. Kelly joins us every week also talking sports betting, and she is our special guest co-host today and tomorrow. Kelly, 1 hour down. Do you feel like the 3-hour show is getting quicker for you now the second time you've done this with me?
I don't know if I do, but I appreciate you driving the bus. You make that easy on me. But it is funny because I think I have some sort of like ADD, because as soon as I try to keep my phone over there, I try to do anything else, I get easily distracted. So with you driving the ship, it seems a lot faster. If it was me, I think we'd have a lot different show on our hands.
I'm much better at multitasking when Hutton is here hosting and leading me. So I totally get it. I can actually apologize. I apologize to people in the chat that are there all the time. I'm normally chatting with them on YouTube, but I'm not chatting as much today, steering the ship. But I totally understand what you're saying. It's easy to get sidetracked. Easy to get conflicted with news that's out there, or I'm sure with you, a bet you're probably going to make tonight. How's college basketball season going for you so far, Kelly?
It's going. You know, this is where it gets really tough and the rubber meets the road, right? Before Trey came on, I asked how he's doing. He's like, I'm doing great. Well, I feel the same. I'm also doing great. Right now, we've got college football, we've got NFL, we've got NBA, we've got college basketball, we've got NHL. So I think it's one of those things where you got to pick your poison. You got to say, okay, where's my focus going to be? And now that the bowl games are here, now I can finally start to focus on college basketball a little bit more. Had a great weekend in the NFL, and I hope to carry that over into Saturday's basketball slate.
So Draymond Green is now second all-time in technical fouls in NBA history. He trails only Rasheed Wallace. And after the latest with Jusuf Nurkić and the slap that everyone has seen at this point with Draymond Green and him being suspended indefinitely, Kelly, it's the biggest story of the day, and it's really got me thinking about the current state of the NBA and how people view it as to how they view the NBA of yesteryear. And Draymond Green, I think, is a classic example of this. Draymond Green is seen as cheap shot artist, dirty, kind of a punk, not remorseful about it, all of these things, right? I would love to go back and see how Bill Laimbeer would be viewed in a social media era. I'd love to see how Charles Oakley would be viewed in a social media era. Rasheed Wallace, heck, a lot of his career, was played where there wasn't a lot of social media around where everyone could have an opinion on anything. And I've come to the conclusion that the biggest problem with Draymond Green is he's seemingly the only one doing this, and there's never a fight. If there was one actual fight, I'm talking hockey-style brawl. Some team sends some guy out there to provoke Draymond Green. He slaps him one time, and this guy has no care in the world about getting suspended for half a season because he is a bench player that just likes to fight. And he is sent out there to fight Draymond Green. If we could all witness that fight, I really think everyone would view Draymond Green differently. I think they'd view him in a better light. If he got in a fight and held his own with someone even bigger than him,
are you trying to set up like a WWE style wrestling match? Like you want to see these two go like straight fists, like hockey fight, take the gloves off?
I absolutely want to see this. I want to see. The problem is we got into it a little bit yesterday, and I forget exactly how it was phrased, but bullies in the NBA, and when there's no one to stand up to the bullies are left unchecked. And there's seemingly only one bully right now in the NBA, and it's Draymond Green, right? I don't think anybody, if LeBron James does something, I don't think anybody's going to fight LeBron James, right?
No.
But Draymond Green, is there not one guy that's the 12th player on an NBA roster that someone could put in that really wants to fight this guy and just see him get into an actual fight?
Just
it's going to be broken up quick, right?
Yeah, of course.
But can you get to him where there's a legitimate fight on the court? I want to see it. I'm not I'm not holding back here. I'd like to see
Dennis
that.
Rodman when we need him? You get like some other guy to actually put, like you said, put someone else in check. And that is not, you're right. I can't think of a single player on an NBA roster right now that could check Draymond Green, like full on check him. Like you can start something with him. You can kind of get him to provoke something maybe, but I mean, put him in an actual check. Where's Meta World Peace?
I think there are plenty of guys who could beat his ass.
I just
think they won't.
I just
right?
meant they won't because they don't want to be fined. They don't want to be suspended. They don't want to tarnish their own careers.
Yeah, you got to find the guy who's almost like the hired gun. Someone who knows he's probably hanging on for another year or two in the league, or he's again on the end of the bench and not really playing. That's almost assigned the role to go in and fight Draymond Green. I really believe that people would look at Draymond Green better if he was in a high-profile, legitimate fight. Reggie Miller and Michael Jordan getting into a fight. All those Lakers-Celtics fight. Anything involving the Detroit Pistons, the high-profile things that we've seen, I feel like people would view Draymond Green better if he got into one of those. You agree or disagree?
I don't know. Like the NBA is really funny. I worked for NBA TV a few years ago. So I really got back into the NBA, right? When I was a kid, who was it? It was the Chicago Bulls. We all had jerseys and starter jackets and all those things. And you mentioned social media. Now, as an adult and living in Las Vegas, I heard all sorts of crazy stories. And I finally figured out, the rumors to Rodman flying to Vegas during the playoffs and Phil just saying, it's just what Dennis needed to do. There's a lot of eyeballs on these guys in comparison to just that 2-hour basketball game that it used to be. So I will say this, in fairness, I do think that this world of social media has brought to light much more of the outside personalities of these guys. And, there used to be press conferences, but those were solely for the press. Now everybody hears the answers to the question. Now everybody gets to kind of see their personalities off the court. I will give Draymond a 1% pass for that.
So I'm going to go off the board here because this is a story that's been written by OutKick here recently, and there's been videos put out about it.
Hey, Chad, real quick. Could I add, I would like for Isaiah Stewart to be my nominee to fight Draymond. If you remember back whenever he tried to go at LeBron, it took about 4 people to hold him back.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, the Pistons have lost 21 straight games, so it's not like they're really in contention for anything of merit anyway.
Yeah, we need to find, if not Isaiah Stewart, I bet I could go on every NBA roster, and I could anoint one guy who's not a big factor on a team that would be a great opponent for Draymond Green to fight. That I'm not saying that I'm going to find someone that could whip him on every team, because I do think Draymond Green probably could fight if pushed to it. I think he'd be pretty good at it.
Do you really think so?
I do. I think he'd be pretty good at it.
I kind of have to wonder, sometimes when you've always been the big guy, people don't really mess with you.
No, I think there's a reason they don't. First of all, I think people kind of think he's a little crazy. And it's like the guy that's acting the craziest in the bar. You don't want to fight him. So I think there's a little bit of unhinged about him. So again, I don't think he's some weakling that, some point guard is going to go up to and beat up. He's a bully, and someone needs to stand up to him. And I think there are plenty of people who could whip him in a fight. I also don't think that he's some non-tough guy that couldn't hold his own in a fight. I'm pretty sure Draymond Green would do just fine in fighting most humans on earth. But there are NBA players that are way bigger and probably way tougher that could fight him and definitely whip him. This is really funny, though. So this is all over OutKick right now. You can read about it at outkick.com. Gilbert Arenas, who hosts a podcast, basically said something about Draymond Green, and he's inferring that Draymond Green just wants to wipe out European players from the game after going after Jusuf Nurkić and going after others. And maybe I'm just a little twisted here, but I don't read this and get outraged. There's not many things that offend me or make me outraged. But when I see a caption on something posted at OutKick that says, Gilbert Arenas calls for Draymond Green to assault more European players, that's a really funny Onion-type headline. It's so good that it's true that he actually said this, but I laugh hard when I see that as a headline. Gilbert Arenas calls for Draymond Green to assault more European players. Kelly, do you find that funny like me, or are you outraged that he would say this?
I also am not outraged, but unfortunately, I'm just not surprised. That is the culture that has been set in the NBA, and it is unfortunate. But I don't understand what are we talking European players? Or are we talking white players? Because I kind of feel like they're trying to use that terminology one and the same.
Yeah, well, Gilbert Arenas may be trying to do that, but Rudy Gobert was the guy who just put in a chokehold, and he is a Frenchman who is also not white. So
that is correct.
I look, it's probably he's inferring that it's white people, and I certainly agree that if you flip it, and someone said, Nikola Jokic is going after black players, and he's just trying to wipe them out, then that would be a bigger story and a bigger issue if a white person said that. I would just like to get to a point where we're all less offended by things. I read that
Fair
about
enough.
Gilbert Arenas saying that, and I think that's just a really funny headline, that Gilbert Arenas is saying that Draymond Green is trying to wipe out and assault European players. Yeah.
Yes. If I sent that to my girlfriend who covers the NBA and said, can you see what the Onion just wrote? And I think she would absolutely know, believe that.
It's a hell of a catchy headline. Like I saw those words put out, and I immediately clicked on it and thought, okay, this is a story I'm going to read because I want to hear this quote from Gilbert Arenas. But that is a real headline. Another real headline, Shohei Ohtani going to the Dodgers. We all know about the 10-year, $70 million contract, deferring $68 million of that annually to 10 years from now. And already Ohtani is paying dividends. His Dodgers number 17 jersey, the highest selling jersey ever at Fanatics, over 48 hours, passing Lionel Messi for when he signed with Inter Miami, breaking a record for jerseys sold. This does not surprise me, Kelly, but this goes to show you the both American and international impact of Shohei Ohtani with the Dodgers.
Let's put it this way, Chad. I follow nothing of baseball. One of my best friends works for MLB Network, and I get all of my cliff notes from her. Baseball lost me a long time ago, at least from a TV perspective and definitely from a gambling perspective. I love to go to a good game. Who doesn't love a good jersey? But even I know who Ohtani is. And I think this guy is going to make a huge splash for the Dodgers. And like you said, he's already paying dividends. He may even get someone like me excited about baseball again.
Yeah, look, he's a superstar, and baseball needs more of them. I mean, to your point about you not following it, it's a sport that's devoid of superstars, and they need more personality. They need to hype their star players better. And maybe, and I knew Ohtani once he wasn't with the Angels, if it was going to be a high-profile team, whether it be the Red Sox or the Yankees or the Cubs or the Dodgers, it's going to benefit baseball that he's with a more high-profile franchise. And they're starting to see that benefit right now that he is with the Dodgers. Ben Roethlisberger, he sounds off. He says that the Steelers' days of glory are over. He says, I'm quoting Ben Roethlisberger on his podcast, you can't afford the second half of games to burn silly timeouts and to not have them late in the game. To me, that's bad coaching. Direct shot at Mike Tomlin, his former coach. When it's 4th and 1, you have to take a timeout to figure out if you're going to go for it or not. Some of that stuff, preserving timeouts at the end of a game are so valuable. Completely agree with him there. And he says maybe the tradition of the Pittsburgh Steelers is done. The 18-year Steeler admitted this isn't what it has been handed down from those teams of the 70s. The Steel Curtain, 4 Super Bowls, the Knowles, the Bradshaws, the Blunts. All those people, it's unbelievable. I felt that certain guys in the team aren't in it for the team. They're in it for themselves. Strong words from Ben Roethlisberger. I think he's being a tad bit overdramatic. I also think, though, Kelly, Ben Roethlisberger probably knows more about the makeup of that roster and some of the things he's hearing from within that locker room, which gives me some cause for concern that there may be some selfish players right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers leading to some of these problems.
Well, that goes back to what we started the show off with, is kids leaving their prospective schools for either more money or more playing time or whatever that looks like. The commitment here is not to the team. It is to thyself. And that is the upsetting part. The flip side is here. I'm starting to wonder if all those rumors I heard for years about Big Ben and Mike Tomlin not getting along aren't kind of coming to fruition. Listen, you might hear Tom Brady sound off about quarterbacks in the NFL as a whole, but you don't hear him criticizing Belichick's coaching, and the Patriots are in a far worse position than the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I thought the same exact thing. I'm thinking, you don't say this about a coach that you loved, even if you believe it. You'd never say it publicly. But him saying that's poor coaching when they're not prepared to go for it on 4th and 1 or knowing what they're doing and having to burn a timeout, I did take that as, boy, it must not all be peachy between Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger. The key to the Steelers to me has always been when they draft someone, it's a team that has an identity. And you immediately say, I even thought that with Najee Harris, that's the perfect Steeler pick for what he was at Alabama. They get a player and you think that is a Steeler guy. And most of the time, it's hard-nosed team play. And that's their whole mantra, right? That's who they are. If they're truly getting away from that and it's starting to slip because of that selfish play and selfish players of a younger generation you're talking about, Kelly, coming out of college football, that is not good news for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward. I love Mike Tomlin. I love how plain-spoken he is. He's had great success there. I don't think he's in any trouble. But if any of this is true that Ben Roethlisberger is saying, they need to get back to who they are. And there are plenty of guys in college football that aren't selfish. They need to target those guys. And maybe you sacrifice a little bit of talent for a little bit more unselfish team play. That's been the Steelers' way for years. Hopefully they get back to it. Armando Salguero, he knows the Steelers' ways. He knows the NFL. He's been covering it for many years. When we come back, we'll ask him about the Dolphins' collapse, plus Patrick Mahomes having a full-on meltdown post-game after the loss of the Bills. We'll get into all that and more with Armando Salguero. That's next. This is Hot Mic on the OutKick Network.
So in 2019, Sean McDermott, talking to his team in training camp, gave a really stupid analogy. I mean, really stupid. He was talking about 9/11. He was talking about how well coordinated the attackers on our country were. And he was trying to make a reference about communication. He was trying to make a reference that these folks communicated well to one another. It's totally idiotic. I mean, I don't give a damn whether they communicated well. I don't give a damn whether or not they synchronized. I don't care. They were criminals, terrorists at that got the absolute, well, they're the absolute worst of the worst. And I get a little fired up and I stumble over my words. I actually had stuff written down for this, but here's the thing. You got to understand when you're speaking in public, I don't give a damn if you're trying to make a cute analogy. You never use Hitler. You never use 9/11 terrorists. They are the worst of the worst, period. There's nothing good about them. I don't care. You know, how many times have we heard people talk about Hitler and say, yeah, but no, there's no yeah, but. When you do what these folks did to people and families, our country, other countries, you simply never praise them ever. You're not being clever. You're not being smart. You're not making a great analogy. You're being an insensitive clown. And I never use the word insensitive. I don't. I honestly don't. Insensitive to me is meaningless. Let me change that. You're being just a moron. Don't do it. It's not smart. It's not clever. It's not, well, look at how he. No. Horrible human beings. You never reference John Wayne Gacy or Dahmer or Manson. Never. In no way, shape, or form. Now, having said that, hey, how about we get over ourselves? How about we get over what happened 5 years ago, 4 years ago? And here's the deal in sports, and I've told you this before, okay? There's always the list. And when things go bad, here comes the list. So all of a sudden now, the Buffalo Bills are struggling. All of a sudden now, Sean McDermott's leadership is being called into question. And all of a sudden now, something that McDermott has apologized for, both in front of the team and to his bosses, 4 or 5 years later is being brought out. Now, that's ridiculous. Look, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do stupid things. At least that's what the preacher tells me on Sunday. At least that's what when somebody in church, Traders Point Christian Church, says, hey, look, if you've sinned, raise your hand. And everybody raises their hand and the preacher says, yeah, I did too. We're all sinners and we all demand forgiveness, except when it comes time to actually forgive and forget. We never do that. We just can't. We won't. We're so full of crap. We just are. And you can act and say like we aren't, but we are. Who here hasn't sinned? Cast the first stone and all that stuff. Oh, yeah, we're all sinners. Boy, when somebody does, particularly in sports, particularly when they're losing, we can't wait to jump on them.
We're back. Hot mic across the OutKick network on this Thursday. I'm Chad Withrow, Kelly Stewart, Kelly in Vegas, co-hosting with us. Jonathan Hutton will be back on Monday. And it is the holiday season. Better get those Christmas gifts ready to go. You can do it right now at the OutKick store, playing on a new field. That's right, the new OutKick store just launched to celebrate, offering buy one, get one 50% off for a limited time. You can find your favorite polos, T-shirts, and more when you visit shop.outkick.com and score 50% off. All you have to do is visit shop.outkick.com, add the items to your cart, and the discount will automatically be applied. Speaking of the OutKick store, Armando Salguero, he's gone to the OutKick store. He is the senior NFL writer with OutKick.com, and he is most likely to yell at the ref, and he is with us right now. Armando, that hat looks great because it matches the OutKick backdrop you have going on there. Very well done, sir.
Yeah, brother. So, yeah, if you need to go to the OutKick store, I'm shocked that you don't have a promo code like I like the Vikes for no reason or something like that.
Let's get into it. It's victory lap time for Armando. Josh Dobbs benched. He not only regressed to the mean, but regressed below the mean. In defense of my guy Dobbs, they still had a winning record when he started games, and at least he didn't lose it for them. Yeah, he didn't score a single point, but there wasn't a turnover fest like the game against the Bears. He did nothing, but I guess nothing is better than less than nothing, and they go to Nick Mullins now.
Yeah, you know what probably got him benched before the whole did nothing on offense thing was that pass that he threw across the middle of the field that almost got Justin Jefferson hospitalized. You throw that pass that is way too high across the middle, Jefferson exposes his ribs and torso. You're a bad quarterback to be doing that to your team's best player. And that will earn you a trip to the bench, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Nick Mullins now makes it the rest of the way for injury or other reasons, and they have to go back to Dobbs at some point because those last two games were definitely rough for him. Vikings are still hanging around, though. Dolphins look like they were in prime position to get themselves into that number one seed in the AFC. And Armando, I was shocked having watched this Titans team all year, down 14, under 3 minutes left, and the Dolphins blow that lead to Will Levis and the Titans. Feels like a game they're going to be regretting come playoff time.
Stunning. It was just stunning. For a while there, the Tennessee Titans were trying to lose. They were just, we must lose today. The Dolphins can't score from inside the 5. Will Levis, I'm going to throw a pick 6 to a defensive lineman inside the 5-yard line. The Dolphins are, trailing. we're going to muff a punt inside our 15 and give the Dolphins a touchdown. The Dolphins are trying not to have a comeback. Derrick Henry and Will Levis fumble, Dolphins ball, another touchdown. And at that point, with 4 minutes to play, I decided, it's a doubleheader. I'm going to go watch the other game. This game's over. and then the Tennessee Titans catch fire, and the Dolphins just totally wilt and shrink and choke and all the other, fun words that you can come up for not getting the job done. And sure enough, the Tennessee Titans have found their quarterback, and the Dolphins have a lot of questions.
Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about the Dolphins too, but I have more questions about Thursday night. So this is kind of a race to the bottom in the AFC West here. I have to know, and I've asked this question for weeks, if the Chargers lose tonight to the Raiders with Aiden O'Connell under center, no Justin Herbert, is he going to get another pass because his star quarterback is gone? I don't understand what's going on in LA with this Chargers team and how Brandon Staley is still employed.
Yeah, I don't understand how he's still employed either. I think there's people within the Chargers organization, Kelly, that don't understand how Brandon Staley is still employed. But here's the thing. It's no longer advantageous for NFL teams to dump their head coaches close to the end of the season, unless there's, circumstances that say this guy is actually hurting the organization. And the reason for that is this year, the NFL changed the rules on when you can actually, start interviewing. They put back that date. And so there's no advantage to starting your due diligence on the new guy by getting rid of the old guy. That has helped coaches who are going to get fired anyway. And Brandon Staley is at this rate going to get fired anyway. It helps them keep their job for 3 weeks more or 4 weeks more, however long that is.
All right, let's stay in the AFC West. I have some real questions about this year's Kansas City Chiefs. Last year, they said no wide receiver, no running back, no problem, still won a Super Bowl. And now they've lost 4 of their last 6. It has been a problem, if you will, since the Detroit Lions game way back when, that no one can catch the ball for Kansas City that's not named Travis Kelce. And I think Patrick Mahomes, who seems fairly even keeled most of the time, has finally reached a boiling point. I want to hear your thoughts on what's actually going on in Kansas City.
Yeah, he's boiling on the wrong people because he's taken his frustrations out on, the officiating after what was a correct call. That's a bad look for the face of the NFL when you're angry and throwing a fit at a fact that they made the right call and it just went against you when you have in fact, benefited from a lot of weird, questionable calls. I would say to you that the Chiefs at this point, they continue even today, or was it yesterday? Travis Kelce is talking about, we've got enough talent on the outside. We're good. Patrick Mahomes is talking about how our guys work really hard and I trust them. What else are they going to say? It's not like they can draft anybody. It's not like they can sign anybody at this point that's going to make a difference. I think, all understand that when the playoffs come around, that wide receiver core isn't going to be it, hasn't been it. They laid the NFL in drops by a good margin. They've dropped like 8% of their passes this year. No other team is over 5. So yeah, that's if there's going to be a downfall of the defending Super Bowl champions, that's going to be it.
And aren't the Chiefs, Armando, letting Kadarius Toney off the hook here by complaining constantly about the officials and not saying, hey, dude, you're 4 feet from the ball. Just look to your right and make sure you take one step back to where your whole body's not in front of the line of scrimmage. To me, they're really focusing on the wrong thing here. And to me, the thing to focus on is get your guy where he's got enough awareness to not put the team in jeopardy down the stretch like that, or at any point when it's that simple to look at the ball and then get on the line?
Yeah, so that conversation has happened. It happened internally, but they recognize that Kadarius Toney is kind of a fragile kind of guy. And if you basically pull his pants down in public and put him across your knee in public, he's not going to react well. So they're going to defend him in public, and then in private, that's where you get the spanking, and he has gotten it. And by the way, it wasn't that just one time. He was offside like 6 times in that game. He just got called for it on that one play. He should have been called for it like 6 different times.
Armando, are you buying that Bill Belichick is done once the season ends in New England? And if so, is he coaching somewhere else next year?
So let's assume that, they don't win out, because we gotta know what the circumstances are. Assuming he doesn't rally that team, which is a very good assumption given their talent level, he's not going to be the head coach of the New England Patriots after this season. The question is how he's going to make his exit. Robert Kraft would like to get a draft pick for Bill Belichick. I don't know that Bill Belichick has any motivation to have his next team give his former team a draft pick. So that's going to be an interesting, a dynamic and an interesting discussion. And yeah, it all assumes that Belichick will continue to coach. Dude, what else is that guy going to do? Really? That's who he is. That's what he is built for. And I think he will continue to do it.
So a tale of 2 backup quarterbacks here, Armando, both in the AFC North. Call it the Josh Dobbs effect, right? Josh Dobbs played great early, but eventually faded. Who's most likely to become Josh Dobbs? Is it Joe Flacco with the Cleveland Browns, or is it Jake Browning with the Cincinnati Bengals? Both guys off to hot starts. Both guys have their team still firmly in the mix. Who's most likely to Josh Dobbs this thing moving forward?
Right, and by that you mean who's most likely to just soil themselves, right?
Well, to fall back to being, backup quarterback, or for Joe Flacco, a guy who hasn't had it in years. That's a veteran, older guy.
Right. The beauty of Joe Flacco is he's got a great defense on the other side. He doesn't have to do a ton, and he's got a good offensive line in front of him. So the fact that he's a statue in the park doesn't really matter all that much. It's a perfect situation for Joe Flacco, because all he has to do is make 3 plays a game, and they're going to be pretty close to winning those games, like 17, 19 to 10 or 19 to 7. Unless there are other injuries or the offensive line falls apart or the defense loses Myles Garrett, that's going to be the narrative for the Cleveland Browns. So I don't see that changing. Joe Flacco isn't going to get you 35 points a game, and he didn't for the Jets, and he didn't at the end, for the Ravens. But he is going to get you two touchdowns, and it's 17 points, and their defense is great. That's going to be enough for them. Browning is interesting. He is the more likely, Josh Dobbs candidate. I don't want to be the Grim Reaper and decide.
You had no problem doing that with my guy Dobbs, so go ahead. You go ahead, Grim Reaper. Kill him. Go ahead. Kill him on air. Do it.
Okay. Here's my staff. Here's my staff. Jake Browning, God bless him. Everybody's comparing him now to,
Joe Burrow.
Yeah. I couldn't even say it. It's not right. It's not right. He is the more likely return to earth, like a meteor type of candidate, I would say.
So I love your hat, Armando, from the OutKick store, the most likely to yell at the ref hat. But I was secretly hoping that you were going to wear the fedora that Sean Stellato the agent for Tommy DeVito, had on Monday Night Football. I was hoping you'd appear in that just beautiful fedora. Speaking of, questions about and comparisons, Brian Daboll was asked about Tommy DeVito and Tom Brady, about another guy who went late in the draft, and Daboll just said, "Stop. Just don't do it. Don't even say it." This Tommy DeVito story, though, is something. The kid has played really well. And then we get all these questions going about what does it mean? What does it mean, Armando, about him, about the Giants currently, about his future? Is this a flash-in-the-pan version of Linsanity that we're seeing? Or is this the start of something for a guy that could start for a few years in the NFL for some team?
I don't think that he is going to be a starter in the NFL, long term. But the NFL is about incremental steps. And at the very least, he has assured himself that somebody will say, that guy, he can be our backup next year. And that team will probably be the New York Giants because he's done well for them this year. And unless he plans to move out of his parents' house, unless he plans to suddenly, go into a different culture other than, the whole Italian thing, he fits right there in New Jersey with the Giants. He is a perfect fit. And oh, by the way, he fits the system also. So that is his probably lot. They have to pay Daniel Jones, which means they have to play Daniel Jones. And that's what's going to happen at least, early next year until perhaps Daniel Jones shows himself to be Daniel Jones. And then we've got a competition.
Armando Salguero, you can watch him on the 5 spot with Donovan McNabb. Armando, always fun. Appreciate you, buddy.
It's my pleasure. Be well, Kelly.
LeBron James didn't acknowledge the national anthem. People are pissed. We'll talk about it when we come back. This is Hot Mike on the OutKick Network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Taste of a Southern legend.
We are rolling right along on Hot Mic on this Thursday edition. I'm Chad Withrow. Kelly Stewart, Kelly in Vegas, our special guest co-host, doing a phenomenal job with us today. You can catch her with Clay Travis on The Fade as part of the OutKick Network, a weekly show looking at sports betting. Kelly joins us every week also right here on Hot Mic, and love her work with OutKick, love her work on this show. And I think it's going fast for her today, but I asked earlier and I didn't get a resounding yes on that. Kelly, we're really almost, once we get that final hour, it's the home stretch, I promise. So are you feeling good? How's the fatigue great right now? You feel good?
You know, one thing that I've realized is I got to get back into yoga. Getting old, your back starts tightening up after sitting for too long. So I've been doing some wall stretches during the commercial breaks.
I did notice on Friday when you co-hosted with me, right when the show ended, it was like you had this huge stretch, almost like you were yawning. Like it was, you immediately relaxed as it ended. So you got to pace yourself. You got to do some stretching. Light calisthenics, whatever it takes to get through. Grab that vase of a glass you have full with water.
Should I do jumping jacks while we're at it next? Get your heart rate going.
Jumping jacks, whatever it takes to just keep things, keep you alert, ready to go. Hydrate. You got to do all the tricks over the course of a 3-hour show. Kelly knows that. She's doing a terrific job with it. People are mad at LeBron James. The national anthem police are at it again, and LeBron James, who apparently has made a habit of entering games his son is playing during the national anthem as a way to not be too bad of a distraction when everyone is standing and acknowledging the national anthem, which is, by the way, a very smart move if you're trying to not be the scene and the show, is to walk in when everyone's looking at the flag and the national anthem. But he walks in, he puts his stuff down, he gets seated while everyone else is standing for the national anthem. Kelly, I think it's a smart move if you're a celebrity to the extent of LeBron James to do it this way. I think you could also probably just continue standing and acknowledge that a national anthem is being played once you walk to your seat instead of sitting down and immediately looking at your phone.
Yeah, I'm part of the national anthem police. I don't care where I'm at, where I'm going.
Take your hat off, put it over your heart, the whole thing.
I have physically taken hats off from those around me, just as a subtle reminder. You should take your hat off to show a sign of respect. So I don't even really like the idea that he's walking in. Now, you just gave me a whole nother side of things. That would make sense that he walks in during the national anthem while everybody is facing a different direction or not paying attention, which I will commend him on if that really is the fact about not making it about himself, which is kind of shocking in itself that he would actually have the wherewithal to do that. But you're right. What I don't like is that he sits down and then if you watch more of the video, I'm assuming it's his youngest daughter, she's not very old, is also sitting there and not paying attention either. I think that it's very important to teach our children the whole side of it as well.
I agree. And she's also talking. That's what bothers me. I've watched the video. When the sound up, you can hear his entire party talking to each other as the anthem's going on. That drives me crazy when I'm at an event, the anthem's playing, and someone's just continuing their conversation. There's always this weird area of, especially at a big football stadium. I know you've been in this also. You're in the concourse, and you're far enough away from it that you can barely hear the PA, but you can hear that the anthem is starting. I always stop and acknowledge the anthem, but then it's strange when everyone else just continues ordering at the concession, going in and out of the bathroom, moving around, and you feel almost like a crazy person for standing there when everyone else is just going about their business. You got to stand. You got to stop in the concourse too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
Good. I'm glad we agree on that. So no matter what, if you hear the anthem played, you stop, you pay your respect, and then you move on when it's over. I agree with you, but you've been in the situation before where people keep moving in the concourse, not in the stadium.
I don't try to micromanage those in the concourse, and the people working should probably stop selling concessions. I've actually seen places where they do. But yeah, it's kind of tough, right? Everybody's trying to scramble to get to their seats before kickoff. It becomes a little dicey. And so I give those people a side pass, if you will.
I don't like a lot of what LeBron James says and some of the things that he stands for at times. I will give a slight pass, though, to someone of a LeBron James, Taylor Swift, Tom Cruise, Leonardo DiCaprio ilk, in that I also don't know what life is like to know that everywhere you go, everyone's eyes are going to turn towards you. And if you even make the slightest bit of eye contact with someone, they're going to pull out their phone and try to get a picture with you or say something to you or talk to you, that's got to be a very weird existence. Hey, there's an Iowa Hawkeyes fan waving in the studio right now. Kelly's not a fan of him. But that's got to be a very weird existence, right? To know that everywhere you go that you're having to plan to walk into a venue during a national anthem because that's the time where you're not going to get stopped by anyone and security is going to walk you to your seat at that point. That's a very strange place to be in.
I would have to agree. At a certain point, it's probably got to be, for lack of better words, annoying that you can't just go to anywhere. You can't go sit down at a restaurant. You can't go to a store. You can't do anything that the rest of us are able to do on a day-to-day basis without anybody knowing who you are. So I could see, again, why that is the walk-in song of choice, if you will, to be, able to just go sit on your floor seats and be, quote unquote, left alone. But also these people have tons of security. There's a reason why they have these people around them so that you can just say, hey, you know what? We're here to watch his son's basketball game. Please. We appreciate you, supporting him as a fan and all these things, but he would like to enjoy the game. And I don't think anything's wrong with that either.
Yeah. But the money makes it worth it, right? If you're that big of a celebrity. I'd rather be just
you have more
rich.
money than God.
Yeah, I'd rather be rich and not famous to not have to deal with that. If you can be anonymous and filthy rich like a LeBron James or a Taylor Swift. But I think if you're them, probably the money makes that part of it worth it. So I'm not going to cry too many tears for them or anything like that. But I just, just trying to show some self-awareness. I don't know what it's like to be them and to be in that position. I completely understand if he's got a way to get into a gym or an arena that his son's playing in, that he can go a little bit low-key. I'm all for that, but I'm with you. Stand for the anthem. What are your thoughts on hanging banners for in-season tournament championships? Because that's what the Los Angeles Lakers are doing. Now, they don't even hang banners for the Lakers for Western Conference championships, but they're going to hang one for the in-season tournament. Kelly, I think this is clearly a move and a direction by the NBA to force them to do this, to try to make it where this is a big deal. They're going to make it where the banner is different size and different shape of their championship banners hanging from the rafters. But I think this is an NBA directive that they're following through on.
You're far smarter than I am, Chad. I just figured it was another LA Lakers, look at us, look at us, look at us. We did something right type of move. But yours sounds a lot more feasible now that I hear it come out of your mouth. And that's rightfully so. Look, the NBA is having, I won't call it an identity crisis, but they're having some issues, right? And Clay Travis talks about this all the time on his show in terms of viewership. And, Mark Cuban jumps in his mentions and goes after him for it. It is interesting, but this is definitely getting more people to watch, albeit probably more gamblers, but they're getting more people to watch because now all of a sudden NBA players care in November and December.
Yeah, it's look, if you're the Oklahoma City Thunder and you want to hang an in-season tournament championship banner because you don't really have any, if you're a team that doesn't have a lot of history or a lot of winning history, I'm all for that, right? There's the Nashville Predators here in Nashville. They got all sorts of crap for hanging, best regular season record banners or division, title banners, whatever. I get it if you don't have any success and you don't have a ton of championship banners from the 50s, 60s, and 70s like some of these teams do that you can hang in your arena. Fine, have at it. I like the fact the Lakers normally just hang championship banners, but I can't believe that the Lakers organization actually wanted to do this. I just feel like they were forced to do it. Now, if you are the Los Angeles Clippers and you want to hang an in-season championship, have at it. Right? Teams that I follow haven't won a ton of championships. If you want to hang a division title or a conference championship, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to police all of it. But if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, the Boston Celtics, if you are a top franchise in pro sports, none of that. Just championship banners, please. That's where I stand on that. I don't know where you stand, Kelly, on Serbian Heritage Night, but that's what was happening in Chicago at the Bulls game, where Jokic was ejected on Serbian Heritage Night. And this was one of the weakest ejections I've ever seen. I don't know what he said. I don't know if the official speaks Serbian and he said something really awful in Serbian and he picked up on it. But from what I've seen with the complaining that goes on in NBA games from players, this was very, very light to get ejected over, especially on Serbian Heritage Night at a Bulls game.
Yeah, you have to be pretty soft to make that kind of call. I am a big Nikola Jokic fan. I grew up a Nuggets fan. I think what he's been able to do is nothing short of absolutely incredible. I love that he doesn't care about the NBA. Just as an overall person, he just wants to go back to Serbia. So it is slightly ironic that on Serbian Heritage Night, he was ejected by a referee who I think made a pretty ridiculous call.
Did Dikembe Mutombo make you a Nuggets fan growing up?
I did love me some Dikembe Mutombo when I was a kid. He was one of those just very funny, likable NBA players. Maybe he could take on Draymond Green for you.
Those uniforms of the Dikembe Mutombo era Nuggets,
the best ones.
The navy blue with the gold.
Yep.
I usually don't like second or third iterations of uniforms. I like the classic better. Those are pretty cool. I like it when the Nuggets wear those as throwbacks, as that kind of color scheme. And they got a little bit of that going on now too, but they kind of bounce back and forth. There's a high school basketball coach that got beat up by one of his players. In fact, it was a player and a player's older brother. It was after the bus got back to the school. Player gets benched by the coach. Words were had at the bus stop back at the school at 10 o'clock at night, and the coach got beat up. Kelly, I don't know about you, but I hear this story, and it doesn't really surprise me because I've been in a couple of instances in my life playing sports where I was pretty darn sure that a player was about to take a swing at a coach, and I was shocked it didn't happen. I've seen it come close to blows before, and I'm talking from junior high on. I saw a junior high kid throw a shoe at one of our coaches in a locker room one time that nearly sparked a physical altercation. So I see this, and honestly, I'm not shocked. That's sad, but I'm not shocked to see something like this happen.
Oh, man. I'm sad to see something like that happen, especially I'm guessing the older brother is more of a father figure, probably was at the game and might have, let's just put it this way, pushed the underage brother over the edge, or it could have been the latter where the underage one, kind of got into it. And he thought that as the older brother, he needed to back him up against the coach. It's sad to see. I'm not sure he's probably already a high school teacher, which is not an easy job. And now he's coaching basketball to make some extra money. And now you're getting beat up after a game. It's keeps going back full circle this whole show. It's the culture that we have with some of these young kids, whether they're mad that they got benched, they're not getting enough playing time, they haven't seen the field enough this year. And it's so easy just to move on to the next. Just cut the tie and go next. Unfortunately for this kid, I'm going to go ahead and guess there will be no next.
I must have grown up in the wrong place because I don't bat an eye at this. I watched a shoe get thrown at a junior high basketball coach who was also my history teacher. I saw the same coach have a practice jersey thrown in his face at a basketball camp during a game as a player walked out of the gym and had to call his parents to drive a couple hours to come pick him up from the camp where we were staying at an overnight camp. I've seen practices where a player picked up a ball rack and chucked it toward the coach during a drill at one point. So, yeah, none of this stuff surprises me. Probably need to reevaluate my childhood also. I mean, it may fit right in with this generation. Who knows? We got a lot more coming the rest of the show. The SEC schedule is out. We're going to get into that. Iowa needs an offensive coordinator. We knew they needed an offensive coordinator throughout the last couple of years, especially this season, where they were historically bad on that side of the ball. Who's a good fit? Maybe, just maybe, a former Big Ten head coach that we can float out there. What direction should they go? Should they stick with the Iowa way of what they've done forever or changed up and go with a different offensive style? We'll talk about that and more when we come back. This is Hot Mic across the OutKick Network.
What would you spend on an engagement ring?
I'm not an engagement ring type of person. But if she wanted a ring, I'd probably spend like 20 on it.
20 what?
1,000.
20,000? That's a lot of money.
Big and shit.
You don't get that lady a real answer.
No, for real. Ain't it how much you make though?
Price, I didn't really care. Size, absolutely. Had to be big enough it could be seen, and I didn't want like a basic ring. I wanted like eclectic, like vintage looking. Okay. So we did a custom order to do my ring.
I didn't have a preference. I just had a gold preference, and he kind of took it from there.
And you trusted him. Did he crush it?
Oh yeah, he crushed it.
I've been spoiled thus far, and so I don't think I could ever go back from what I received last time.
Okay, so high standards. That's good. What are the standards?
Okay, it was 5 carats.
Okay.
And it was beautiful.
Mine was way too expensive.
What's way too expensive?
Like $45,000.
Okay.
Wow.
You probably went with a real diamond.
Very much so, yeah.
Do you think that that's kind of a flex for the guy? Like, is the engagement ring, is the engagement ring only for the girl, or do you get to watch other people look at your girl's ring?
Solely for the girl. Solely for the girl.
You don't get any enjoyment?
Couldn't care less.
Do we think gender roles are a thing of the past, or we should bring them back?
I feel like it depends on certain things, but I feel like now it's like a teammate. Like that should be your partner, your teammate. Like I'm not cleaning all the house all the time because I'm not your mom.
I agree. We're double income, no kids, so I really like a partnership, but I don't want to take the trash out.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to do that.
She takes the kids, I provide. Very traditional.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that more young people should do that?
Yes. Very much so.
What is it about like a motherly quality that you like?
It's worked for thousands of years and it still works today.
I like being girly. I'm a girl and I like being girly, so I like traditional gender roles.
Okay, well, according to the 7 Hermetic principles, one of those being the law of gender, gender manifests on all levels, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all levels. Throughout the cosmos, there's gender. I don't know, it's a lot. It's a book I read called The Supreme Way of Men or Women or something like that, and it spoke on how whether it's 2 women or 2 men, there still has to be someone who's masculine, someone who's feminine.
My friend, do you know what Riz means?
Yeah, Riz is like, it's like game. You know what game is? Like when you're trying.
I don't have any, but I know what it is.
It's like the new word for game. So meaning like you're able to speak well and get, a date kind of.
I do not.
Do you have any guess?
I could guess.
What do you think?
It's like, I don't know, razzle tassel. I don't know.
Kind of. Actually, you're not too far off. Charisma.
Riz, charisma. I've been able to talk someone up.
Did you read that online, or did you already know what that meant?
I'm on TikTok way too much.
Okay, another word that has become very popular this year. Do you know what mentee B means?
I don't know any of this stuff. I'm not on social media. I don't know any of it.
What about mentee B? Do people use the word mentee B in real life?
What is that?
You don't know mentee B?
I've never heard of mentee B.
A mental breakdown?
What?
Mentee B.
A mental breakdown.
You have a mentee B every night. But I like that. I didn't know that, but I like that.
Mentee B, is that like the chocolate mint thing?
What does mentee B mean?
I have no idea. I don't know what that is. Mentee B, you ever heard?
You don't know mentee B?
I've never heard mentee B. Never in my life.
We're back. Final hour of the Thursday show. I'm Chad Withrow. Jonathan Hutton's going to be back with us on Monday. This is a Hot Mic on the OutKick Network. Kelly Stewart co-hosting with me today and tomorrow, doing a terrific job. Kelly in Vegas. And I feel like every time we come back and there's this big empty desk and I'm on it, Kelly laughs a little bit at me, but that's okay. I laugh at myself, too. That's what makes the world go round. Sometimes you got to laugh at yourself. You will not laugh at this deal, though, going on right now with the OutKick store. The OutKick store is playing on a new field. That's right. The new OutKick store just launched to celebrate. We're offering a buy one, get one 50% off deal for a limited time, just in time for the holiday season. Favorite polos, T-shirts, and more when you visit shop.outkick.com. You're going to get 50% off. All you have to do is visit shop.outkick.com. Put the items in your cart. Discount will automatically be applied. Shop.outkick.com. just in time for this holiday season. SEC schedule released yesterday. Kelly, you were excited about it because of Oklahoma and Texas being a part of it, but I think maybe more than anything that got you excited was actually seeing Alabama versus Georgia in the regular season as opposed to seeing them annually in the SEC championship game.
Yes, I would say I'm excited about that. But I gave my praises in an earlier segment with Trey Wallace, and I said, hey, this is great. But I'm still going to criticize the SEC here. Why in the world are we still allowing them to play cupcakes in weeks 10 and 11 and 12? I'm looking at these schedules. You're going to play UMass. This is what you don't. This is where you lose me. When you get to play teams that are not very good before you play, say, Auburn, before you say Oklahoma, right? So right before the Oklahoma game, Alabama's playing Mercer. I don't understand. Auburn before the A&M game, ULM. Okay, ULM's okay, but why are they playing them in November? I don't get it. It is frustrating to me. Play those teams early in the year, give them their paychecks, but why? Why do we give them a essential bye week so late into the season?
Yeah, I don't love it either. And if you notice, all those teams that have the built-in bye week with those cupcakes late in the season, typically those that have a huge rivalry game at the end of it. An example, Tennessee and Vandy are in-state rivals, but hasn't been a very competitive game for a while, right? So you see Tennessee leading up, and this year they played Georgia, I think, the week before. There's no cupcake in between. I think Vandy, because they played in week 0, had a bye week actually leading into that game this year, which was an odd time. I'm with you on the whole built-in bye week with a cupcake in November for the SEC. I am an SEC guy. Even I get a little bit uncomfortable at times with the ESPN SEC love. And I get it because they're totally in bed with the SEC, right? That is the SEC network, is ESPN now. But the same reason I bitched about Charles Woodson winning the Heisman in 1997, because ESPN was propping up the Big Ten and Woodson over Peyton Manning all season long because they had the Big Ten rights and not as much to do with the SEC. I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it. I am uncomfortable for the rest of college football. The arrangement with college football playoff, the SEC, ESPN, coverage of it. Last night, Kelly's a great example. I knew that the schedule was going to be released, but most of these schedules have been released by the independent outlets that cover these teams. But I tune in, I'm thinking it's going to be an SEC network show. No, it's on big ESPN last night, the SEC schedule release. The most entertaining thing about it were the individual schools on social media that had the clever schedule releases, much like the NFL does now. It's fun to go back and watch all of those. But I do get a wee bit uncomfortable. And I'm a huge SEC fan. I think most of America will watch the SEC because they're in some of the biggest games. But does that show need to be on big ESPN? Is it that important? I don't know. I struggle with that. What else? As a Big 12 girl, what do you think? On?
Yeah,
that's fair.
On a Wednesday night, what else were they going to put on?
No, that's fair.
As a Big 12 girl who has to watch 90% of her alma mater's games on ESPN Plus, that should tell you how I feel about it. Let's just call a spade for a spade.
Yeah, that's tough when you got to go to the Plus to watch your games, no doubt about it. Here's where I get really uncomfortable as a grad of an SEC school that's not Alabama, is when I go to, I think it was The Athletic today, and the lead story is Alabama's 2024 schedule revealed. And I'm thinking, wow. The whole SEC got revealed on the same day, but that's the top story. Alabama, we know their schedule now in 2024. Speaking of Alabama, though, bad news for everyone who wants to see Alabama go down. Jalen Milroe coming back for his senior year for Alabama. So one of those situations, Kelly, where in college football, the rich seemingly get richer.
They do. And bad news is, though, every single guy that they picked up in 2021 and 2022 from the wide receiver position is gone. So we're got to keep an eye out on this transfer portal for Alabama because, well, albeit he's going to have weapons, it's still Alabama. They will find guys to bring in. I find that also a little concerning, right? You want to have your quarterback, who at the beginning of the year, it was kind of a quarterback carousel. Did we forget that USF game? That was not good. Clay and I kind of spoke about Jalen Milroe and some of our thoughts on the fade, and the Alabama Reddit pages were going insane that we were not slandering him, just saying maybe he's not the guy. Okay, now he's the guy, but now he doesn't have any weapons that he has any cohesiveness with. So I'm kind of curious to see. Let's see how the playoffs go, the national championship game go. But I'm really curious to see what Nick Saban is able to do in the offseason. We always hear Alabama doesn't rebuild, they reload. So we're going to see if he's able to reload once again.
It truly is, Kelly, remarkable to think about the improvement of that Alabama team just this year, given the struggles against Texas the first go around. But then you mentioned it, the carousel, and they were playing 3 guys. Ty Simpson is playing in that game. Buckner was playing in that game against South Florida on the road where they looked terrible in that game. And you're thinking, is Alabama even that good? And they end up playing for a national championship in the college football playoff. Incredible improvement for that team. Iowa's offense needs to see some improvement. We know the whole situation with the Ferentz family and what drove that directly into the corn-laden ground of the state of Iowa. What direction should they go? And I'm going to throw out a name that we discussed earlier before the show. Scott Frost is available. He's a guy who was a good offensive coordinator before he was a bad head coach for Nebraska. Is that someone you call just trying to go in a completely different direction if you're Iowa?
I kind of have to wonder if these Scott Frost rumors aren't put out by either somebody within the organization or maybe a high-profile donor just to get the conversation going to see how Iowa fans will react. Let's see. Scott Frost, couple of years back at his alma mater and doesn't do anything. How much fault of that was his own? I'm not going to sit here and say 100% by any means. We'll see what Matt Rule's able to do over the next couple of seasons. But with a base like Nebraska, it is probably pretty hard, right? You assume every year since Tom Osborne left, all right, we're back. We're going to be somebody to write home about, and they haven't. It has probably been one of the biggest downfalls in college football, at least from the peak of winning several national championships there under Osborne. So I have to say, I would love to see Nebraska kind of right the ship here. Obviously, Scott Frost wasn't the answer. I don't know if he'll be the answer in Iowa. But what we do know is that hiring your own son is never the answer, Chad. And that's why Iowa is in the predicament they are in. But I have some interesting thoughts on the Scott Frost rumors because I heard so many rumors out of Lincoln about his coaching style. And I wonder if he's capable of going back and coaching under someone else.
One of the biggest shocks I've seen was just the whole tenure of Scott Frost in Nebraska. Because the time, I mean, think back to when he's hired from UCF. They're coming off that undefeated season. Florida wanted him. I mean, he was the belle of the ball, Kelly. Everyone in America wanted that guy. He returns home. He is Alexander the Great. He is the conquering hero from Wood River, Nebraska, star high school player, star for Tom Osborne. He spurned other better programs at the time to come back to Nebraska and build them back to a national power. And it was terrible. It was so much so that every Nebraska fan right now would love to go back to the days of Bo Pelini for what they saw after Bo Pelini.
You're not wrong. Bo Pelini got pushed out just like we've seen Texas push out the Mac Browns of the world. Because again, for these fan bases, it's national championship or bust. The precedent has been set by somebody in either, the late 80s, 90s. I mean, I had Sooners fans coming for my head on Twitter this year for saying that they're not really that good of a 7-0 football team. Just because you covered 7 games doesn't mean you're that good. And well, we saw what happened to them the second half of the season. But now these older fan bases that have I think it's a really sad expectation, are so quick to just cut ties with a guy after 2 or 3 years. I would have cut ties with Scott Frost, so maybe that was a different situation. But there's a reason why Kirk Ferentz still has a job, and that's because Iowa fans are like, you know what? We're okay winning 8, 9, 10 games. We got to go to a Big Ten championship. They are okay. And I am too as a Kansas State fan. And it pains me because I would love to see a national championship, but you also have to kind of understand where you're at in the current landscape.
Expectation regulation, I think, is a very important skill for fan bases, for ADs, for universities, that understanding where you are and being happy with it. And I always say this about college football, and you know this as a K-State person. Not everyone's goal is the same, right? You play in the NFL, you're one of 32 teams. Everyone's goal is to win the Super Bowl every year, and everyone can do that because the rules are the same. There's a salary cap in place. There's a draft process in place. If you make good decisions and get the right quarterback, you too can win a Super Bowl. That's not the case in college football. There are a lot of programs out there that their fans know they're probably not ever going to win a national championship in the current landscape or really in any landscape. And that's fine. If winning 9 or 10 games is the ceiling.
You brought it up.
Yes.
UCF was never going to win a national championship because they weren't at a Power 5 school. And, Scott Frost had a wonderful tenure there. You mentioned it, that he had multiple opportunities to go to a ton of other places. I don't know if it was for more money, if it was he really just did want to go back home to Nebraska. But I find it rather interesting. You're right. It's the very, very few, are going to win national championships year after year. The dynasty that is Nick Saban. He is setting up kids for absolute and utter failure for once he probably retires. I mean, look at what's going on at Texas A&M the last couple of years. And they go out there, they get a national championship winning coach, and then they can't win 8 games. There is a real expectation problem. I am guilty of it too. I'll admit that. I am guilty of it too. I've told people before, like, blame it on Bill Snyder. What do you want from me?
Yeah.
He was my whole childhood.
And it's tough to blame someone if they've seen, what excellence looks like or coming that close to a national title looks like. My in-laws are in Nebraska. I'll be up there for a week between Christmas and New Year. I can tell you their expectations are so low right now. Given everything that's happened since Bo Pelini, they will not hesitate to throw a parade for a bowl game, getting bowl eligible. They would have done that had they beaten Iowa. That's a program that any bit of success is going to be greeted like it's the first time it's happened. Because that's how long it's been since they've been dominant, and they know it.
But they were good under Bo Pelini. They had moments of greatness under Bo Pelini, and yet he got pushed to the wayside. So I would argue to say that maybe some of the other Nebraska fans don't feel the same way that they do, that it is still this hard-nosed, black shirt football defensive powerhouse. They expect that. They don't expect to go into Colorado and get boat raced by Deion Sanders because the quarterback can't throw a 15-yard pass.
Yeah, lots of quarterback issues for the Huskers this year. Here's an issue with a rule that I've always hated, and that is where you fumble into the end zone, it goes out of the end zone, it's a touchback for the opposing team. I've always felt like it was far too punitive for the offense, that if you fumble at the 1-yard line and it happens to go out before the pylon, it's your ball right there, as opposed to 1 inch further. Just because the way the ball bounces, it's a turnover to the other team. Well, the NFL is looking into possibly changing this rule, where if you fumble it into the end zone, you still retain possession where you fumbled the ball. I like this, Kelly. I'm all for it in both the NFL and college football. Where do you stand on it?
This is where my gambling brain comes into play, Chad, and where
talk us through it.
I'll play the devil's advocate. From a fan perspective, I completely see what you're saying. But from a gambling perspective, I sometimes need those bounces or bad bounces to go my way. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So if the NFL is going to do it, I hope they do it correctly. I hope that there is some way to have inconclusive evidence to say that it shouldn't be the other team's ball, right? This has been a rule that's been in place my entire life, to my knowledge. I've never seen it called another way. I have seen so many replays of, like you said, somebody fumbles right before the pylon goes out of bounds. Okay, great. No problem. Line it up, punch it in the end zone. Or even worse, a player does not cross the plane. There's just so many things that go into play here. And I think it opens up the NFL to make more mistakes from an officiating standpoint. And that's the only thing that really, truly concerns me. But I would agree with you from a fan perspective, the rule needs to be changed.
I fear for the future of NFL and college football because of what you just said, officiating. I don't think it's getting any better. I wish
No.
I could say some optimistic thing about there's this great training program for young refs out there, and everyone's wanting to be an official, and they're starting in the middle school and high school ranks and working their way up, and it's a coveted job that people want to do. No one wants to do it. High school games are getting moved to Wednesday, Thursday nights because they don't have enough refs to call the games. It's not going to get any better. This is the best NFL right now, and it's not good. That's not a good thing for the future of both NFL and college football, which we love so much. Davey Hudson loves hockey, loves the NHL. There's a story out of the NHL which will make your stomach turn. We'll get to it when we come back. This is Hot Mic across the OutKick Network.
So in 2019, Sean McDermott, talking to his team in training camp, gave a really stupid analogy. I mean, really stupid. He was talking about 9/11. He was talking about how well coordinated the attackers on our country were. And he was trying to make a reference about communication. He was trying to make a reference that these folks communicated well to one another. It's totally idiotic. I mean, I don't give a damn whether they communicated well. I don't give a damn whether or not they synchronized. I don't care. They were criminals, terrorists, at that got the absolute, well, they're the absolute worst of the worst. And I get a little fired up and I stumble over my words. I actually had stuff written down for this, but here's the thing. You got to understand when you're speaking in public, I don't give a damn if you're trying to make a cute analogy. You never use Hitler. You never use 9/11 terrorists. They are the worst of the worst, period. There's nothing good about them. I don't care. You know, how many times have we heard people talk about Hitler and say, yeah, but no, there's no yeah, but. When you do what these folks did to people and families, our country, other countries, you simply never praise them ever. You're not being clever. You're not being smart. You're not making a great analogy. You're being an insensitive clown. And I never use the word insensitive. I don't. I honestly don't. Insensitive to me is meaningless. Let me change that. You're being just a moron. Don't do it. It's not smart. It's not clever. It's not, well, look at how he. No. Horrible human beings. You never reference John Wayne Gacy or Dahmer or Manson. Never. In no way, shape, or form. Now, having said that, hey, how about we get over ourselves? How about we get over what happened 5 years ago, 4 years ago? And here's the deal in sports, and I've told you this before, okay? There's always the list. And when things go bad, here comes the list. So all of a sudden now, the Buffalo Bills are struggling. All of a sudden now, Sean McDermott's leadership is being called into question. And all of a sudden now, something that McDermott has apologized for, both in front of the team and to his bosses, 4 or 5 years later is being brought out. Now, that's ridiculous. Look, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do stupid things. At least that's what the preacher tells me on Sunday. At least that's what when somebody in church, Traders Point Christian Church, says, hey, look, if you've sinned, raise your hand. And everybody raises their hand and the preacher says, yeah, I did too. We're all sinners. And we all demand forgiveness, except when it comes time to actually forgive and forget. We never do that. We just can't. We won't. We're so full of crap. We just are. And you can act and say like we aren't, but we are. Who here hasn't sinned? Cast the first stone and all that stuff. Oh, yeah, we're all sinners. Boy, when somebody does, particularly in sports, particularly when they're losing, we can't wait to jump on them.
We're back. It's Hot Mic across the OutKick Network, live from our downtown Nashville studios. Old Smoky Moonshine, Yeehaw Beer, having a grand old time this holiday season. I'm Chad Withrow. Jonathan Hutton's going to be back with us on Monday. Kelly Stewart, Kelly in Vegas, doing a terrific job filling in for Hutton, co-hosting with me today. I don't know that either one of us are going to like this story, Kelly, but I got to say it either way. So Barclay Goodrow is a player in the National Hockey League, and he's with the New York Rangers. He was hit in the face with a puck during a game, and he thought that he lost a tooth, and he spit it out and a lot of blood, and it was not his tooth, it was a part of his jaw that he spit out. When they say that hockey players are just built different, this is what they're talking about with a story like this. That is next level toughness, to just spit out your jaw and keep playing.
Yeah, I'm speechless right now, chat. I don't know how I missed this on the internet or on the rundown, but I just got a little hot flash in here. Might pass out. So if you guys don't see me, that is absolutely and utterly bonkers. The fact that hockey players, look, I love hockey. I'm not very good at handicapping it. I love going to live games. I love the action. It is incredible. And of course, I love when the gloves come off and we say, all right, guys, you get about 45 seconds to knock each other around. Then we're going to break it up. We're going to go back out. We're going to skate. That is nothing short of absolutely and utterly disgusting, but just proves exactly how tough these guys are.
So this new movie on Netflix, Leave the World Behind, it's kind of an apocalyptic type movie. Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali, Ethan Hawke. I really enjoyed it. There's a part of it where there's teeth that come out of a young person's mouth. As part of the plot over and over. And I couldn't help, it's pretty gross to watch, but couldn't help but think about that when reading this from Colin Stevenson with the tweet. Just to clear something up with Barclay Goodrow, he said he didn't lose any teeth, that the puck hit him in the face in Ottawa. Asked what it was that he spit out onto the ice that night, he said, quote, "I don't know. That was part of my mouth that should have been inside my mouth." That's an accurate description. This morning, I'm dropping my two daughters off at school, and I hear in the back seat from my oldest daughter, she says, something just fell out of Lucy's ear, and she was grossed out by it. And I'm thinking, okay, that's not a good sign. And there's another little boy in our neighborhood that I drive to school also is in the back. He's trying to get away from it. And I go into the back seat, and it's really not dramatic or anything. It's like a little piece of, earwax from an ear infection she had before. But when you hear that something fell out of your child's ear and no one knows what it is or can identify it, that's not what you want to hear. Much like I feel like you don't want to hear as an athlete or tell someone that I spit out part of my mouth that should have been in my mouth. That's all I can tell you. Not good.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess our viewership's dropped by 50% after those back-to-back repulsive stories, Chad.
Depends on how morbid and grotesque the audience is. Who knows? We're about to find out. We're going to push to the limit now, because if you thought that was weird, it's about to get a lot worse. Davey Hudson is here, and Davey, it's time to get a little bit weird.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Talking now.
Kelly, I like to give a story that's, I guess, going to give you a taste of what you're about to get with Let's Get Weird. And the entire premise behind the segment is simply in the name. It's just to get weird. We got a couple of stories, some a little bit funnier than others. Some, they can get pretty gross at times, but we'll start off with a story that comes out of Austin, Texas. And, this one, I feel like we can all relate to a little bit. If you've ever been in a situation where you're in a hurry, for this situation, a woman was in the hurry to get to the airport. And while she is getting to the Austin airport, she says her Uber driver is driving too slow. This woman's name is Nusha Alexandra Afkami. And the problem was, while I don't know how fast the Uber driver was going, could have been going the speed limit, could have been going below it. But Miss Afkami got a little upset, decided to grab the driver's phone, throw it out the window. The Uber driver pulls over, gets out to retrieve the phone, at which point Miss Afkami gets in the driver's seat, steals the car, speeds off to the airport. It also turns out that the Uber driver left his wallet inside the vehicle. She decided to take the credit card and buy $130 worth of supplies inside one of those airport terminal stores. And fortunately, the phone still worked for the Uber driver. He was able to call the police, and they were able to arrest this woman. I guess my question to you guys is, have you ever gotten to the point where you're yelling at the cab driver? I mean, I know you need to be nice to these people, but they've just been so slow. You got to the point, it's like, hey, how can I steal this vehicle from them and get to my destination on time?
Okay, I'm going to say this because I get a reputation. Chad asked to start the show. Do I think he's a nice guy? Of course, I think Chad is a nice guy. I have a bit of a reputation of sometimes in my friend group being hot-headed, being the most vocal, being the most outspoken, right? And sometimes that makes people a little nervous. But never when I'm in an Uber, your life is in their hands. You can't tell the guy to drive faster or to drive slower. You just have to sit back there with your seatbelt on and just be quiet and just, at that point, you're like, okay, let me just get to my destination safely and securely. It sounds like maybe she was on something alcohol related, maybe, who knows?
Could be.
Obviously, if she had time to go shopping prior to her flight, she wasn't running that late to the airport.
What was the girl on the plane that was seeing things? Remember her that everybody was? She saw something was on the plane.
Tiffany Gomez. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it was whatever she was on. This person was on, because this is maybe the dumbest crime ever. Because it'd be very easy to find the culprit if they know how Uber works and ride shares. All of her information is there, exactly who took the car and took the money and everything else, because she went through the system to get in the vehicle that she then committed grand theft auto and also robbed the guy. So really stupid crime. And while I am a nice guy and I don't frequently complain about much of anything, I usually bite my tongue with anyone in the service industry or anything else. I won't complain. I will say I'm quicker to be angry with Uber drivers than probably any of my friends. So this is where I can empathize with Kelly in that I'm quicker to say something to someone who is going the wrong route when I know there's a better one, the slightest bit rude when I'm in their car about anything. I've never gotten into any type of altercation or anything, but I get more annoyed with Uber, Lyft drivers, maybe more so than others. So I can side with Kelly a bit on that one, but it's a ridiculous crime.
I think the Uber driver's a little at fault here at the same time, because if a person is crazy enough to grab your phone and throw it out the window, why, when you pull over, do you leave the keys in the ignition and just leave everything running as you get out?
That's true.
If this person is going to go to the extent of throwing your phone, which, I mean, phones are not cheap now, especially if you got a nice iPhone, I would be putting that thing in park, taking the keys out, and then going and getting my phone. And then she's just not getting, like, I'm making it worse for her. She's not getting to the airport.
She's going to be on the, she's just going to be on the side of the road.
I'm also demanding she get out of the car. And if she doesn't, I'm calling the cops with the phone that I've retrieved with my keys in hand.
I did.
It's a good point, Dave. He should have, it was a he, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, he should have taken his keys with him.
The one quote I did not say yet was, apparently as Miss Afkami was speeding off, she said, "I need to get to the airport, so I'm going to take your car and drop it off at the Southwest Airlines terminal." So at least you know where she was heading in that regard, which doesn't help her case. And again,
she just took the $100 and whatever you spent on his credit card. It's just, I'm also going to take that because you've really inconvenienced me here. So while I'm going to leave you the vehicle, I'm going to rob you as well and get as much as I can in the airport.
They were at least
That's a lot of purchases at the airport of supplies for a flight. She flying to
stuff's marked
Sydney,
up pretty
Australia.
well.
Where was she going that she needed $130 worth of stuff?
The story, you can find it at Fox News, but unfortunately it does not say the destination. It did say they found the vehicle parked unattended outside.
The destination was the Travis County Correctional Facility. That was her
exactly
destination.
where she went. Yep.
Destination jail. That's where she ended up.
Yep. Miss Afkami has been charged with unauthorized use of a motor vehicle and was booked into the Travis County Jail on a $16,000 bond. So,
tough.
Guys, this next
Tough
story,
go.
It's one that it's not so much the story is. It's just, sometimes you just got to laugh. And while the situation at hand has not been a funny one, and I'm sure everyone's been familiar with the a lot of Ivy League presidents going before Congress and testifying.
SNL thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Tried to have their entire cold open around that. I think that was probably a swing and a miss.
Testifying in regards to students calling for the genocide of the Jewish people on these campuses, such as Penn, at Harvard. And I know Penn's president has stepped down, Liz McGill. She resigned, and rightfully so, for her comments. The Harvard president looks as though she is going to maintain her status as the president of a once prestigious university. Now, what got me was, if you look at Miss Gay, that's her name, Claudine Gay, I believe is the full name.
Claudine Gay, yes, that's right.
She's also been accused of plagiarizing some of her work that helped her get to this status. And McGill's is just a random Twitter account I came across, and said, forget the academic papers. She done plagiarized Moses Malone's whole look. And I just have been laughing about this, like just been chuckling to myself for the last 24 hours ever since seeing this.
Those glasses, definitely a little Moses Malone in there. This whole thing is so crazy to me. I went back because the SNL deal was getting so much attention and watched it. Again, I'm not someone who's easily offended or outraged. I just think it was very funny what they were trying to go for on it until the very end of it. So I can understand. I think Cecily Strong backed out of it last minute.
Correct.
She was supposed to be a part of it and got uncomfortable with it. Smart move by her to not take part in it. I respect her a little bit more now for backing out of that one. Just really dumb. You know, genocide is bad. Cancer is bad. These are pretty obvious things. Ice cream, good. These are non-controversial takes that everyone should have.
It doesn't depend on the context.
And now Penn is down a school president because she couldn't say that genocide was bad and did a very poor job of articulating that point. Just really, really dumb.
But now there's going to be a lot of serious situations I might be in, and somebody's going to bring up Claudine Gay, and I'm going to start laughing because I'm just going to think of Moses Malone.
You're going to think rebounding
R.I.P.
champ of the NBA every time you hear her name now. Yep.
Guys, this next one, Chad, I don't know. This might be something you've got into. I am not married, so it's not like I've had to buy gifts for my wife. But we have, and this could be a situation where on TikTok somebody's just looking for the clout. But we had a situation where a husband hid his wife's Christmas gift inside the oven, and at some point, the wife decided to turn on the oven, I guess I'm presuming to preheat the oven, not knowing the gift was inside there, and it ultimately burned her clothing items. We do have a picture, and I look at this and
He put clothes in the oven?
Yes.
But Victoria's Secret pajamas is what my guess is. That's what it looks like to me. In the oven, not wrapped. That's what's so perplexing about this. So you're hiding it, yet you didn't even wrap it. And also, Home Ec 101, check the oven before you turn it on.
It just makes me think of Step Brothers, because when Dell would sleepwalk, he would just throw the pillows into the oven.
Well, if you're like homeless and your one possession is an oven, then I could see someone, a homeless couple, hiding that one possession, that one gift in the oven, if that's the one thing. But I'm assuming if you own an oven, you also have other places you could hide clothes from your wife for a Christmas gift. Like, there's got to be other nooks and crannies somewhere in your apartment, condo, home, elsewhere. This is the strangest, unless you told me freezer or somewhere like that for clothes. That is it's an odd place to hide anything.
Do you think maybe he was trying to prove a point to his wife that she doesn't use the oven enough?
That's a good point. Yeah, like, I need you to cook more. Like,
I thought the one thing that you would stay away from was that oven, because I haven't had a home cooked meal in years.
I'm just saying. Listen, I get yelled at quite often because early in my relationship, I used to have a lot more time to cook. Now I don't, so I order takeout a lot. So I could see the smart ass in my life doing something like that to say, hey, that was your Christmas present. You haven't used the oven in weeks.
It two-pronged attack, right? I don't really love the pajamas you wanted. I wanted them incinerated anyway, but I got them for you so I can show that I made the effort to get what you wanted for Christmas while also proving the point that you don't cook enough for me. Maybe this man's a genius. I think Kelly's got it right.
I think the first line of the article, because I just opened it up, and said, men, we cannot be this stupid. Maybe he is, in fact, a genius.
This guy's pretty funny, too, if he's going with what Kelly said. I like it.
But guys, I mean, that's where I'm going to leave you off today. I know there's going to be more stupid things that happen, and we'll make sure to get weird as another edition comes up.
I do want to hit one question when we come back, because I have thoughts on one big question that Davey has for Let's Get Weird. I'd be curious to hear Kelly's answer on this one as well. We got to get Kelly's picks gambling-wise tonight for Thursday Night Football also when we come back, plus NFL Eliminator picks. Kelly can't play this game. I've got Hutton's pick. Davey has his ready to go. My loser is ready to go based on my gambling and picks this year. It's all coming up next. Final segment of the show is up next. This is Hot Mic on the OutKick Network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement, and today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
We're back. Hot mic on the OutKick Network, live from 6th and Peabody Studios, downtown Nashville. Old Smoky Moonshine and Yeehaw Beer. Chad Withrow with Kelly Stewart. Kelly in Vegas. Catch the Fade with Clay Travis, Kelly Stewart every week. It's part of the OutKick Network, outkick.com. Very easy to find. Follow Kelly across all of social media, at Kelly in Vegas as well. Should point that out also. We're going to get to some gambling picks for tonight's Thursday night football game. I'm going a little bit off the wall with mine. The one thing I have been good at, guessing anytime touchdowns so far. From a gambling perspective, nothing else has worked out for me. I got what I think is a winner coming up soon. But first, Kelly, you were so good at answering why that guy put the gift in the oven to hide from his wife and coming up with a possible explanation that I do want to hear your explanation or your answer for this question that Davey Hudson has for us about animals.
Yeah, Kelly. So what started the idea for this question was there was an article, unfortunately a man in Pakistan, they found a tiger with a shoe, and they're like, well, that doesn't seem good. Obviously, a man was mauled to death. And without getting into the story, I was just like, what is the animal you would least likely want to be killed by? And there were two lines of thought on that. It's one, well, people are going to remember me for dying from an animal attack. It's like, which do you want it to be like an easy death, or just after the fact you want people to remember? It's like, man, he went down by that. Like that's something else. So I guess I'll leave the question. What's the animal you would least like to be killed by?
Well, first of all, any type of impending death, you would hope it'd be swift and fast, not painful to be remembered by. I hope you'd be remembered by other awesome attributes that you may have. That being said, now you're going to make me think about this. I hope I need it to be an animal that it's never going to happen. So let's go with, oh boy, a hippopotamus. You took the words right on. It's going to be a hippo because I'm never going to be close enough to a hippopotamus to be able to drown me in a swift, fast manner. I live in Florida now. There's too many gators. We have sharks. There are other anacondas out there. I don't want to think about any of those types of animals that could actually potentially kill me on a day-to-day basis.
Hippos kill about 500 people a year. And like I bring this up because there's one name, and I'm not going to put this woman's name out there, but I remember a story from 2018. She actually died by being mauled to death by 7 dachshunds. Those are small dogs. It's like, that's not a story you forget. And so it's just, I guess, like, give me great white, you know? Just like,
yeah, great, right? Just rip me limb from limb and get it over with.
All right. So I hate snakes. Terribly afraid of snakes. Hate them. So the anaconda death worries me. Like any type of strangulation, right? If something get around your neck and kill you that way slowly. Hate that idea. Wasn't there a movie Anaconda with Ice Cube?
Yeah, Jennifer Lopez.
There was actually sorry, David. Go ahead.
I was going to say it had Owen Wilson, John Voight.
Owen
Wilson was in that film.
I think he was the first one to go. Spoiler alert.
Favorite NFL player, Jared Cooper, actually, when he was playing for the Panthers after he left Kansas State, actually had to kill his own python with a knife because it was literally trying to strangle him as he was just hanging out in his kitchen.
We had, in my fraternity house, I was a Sigma Nu, and our mascot was a python.
That would make a lot of sense.
So we had a python. Gina was the name of the python. The python had the mascot had a name in a little terrarium, I guess it is, in the front of the house. And Gina, there was like a keeper of the snake that had no problem, but Gina would get out occasionally. And when the one year I lived in the fraternity house, that was so terrifying to me. Every time Gina was out there, I was going to wake up with this python around my neck. Hated the thought of that. So that did not help with the fear of snakes. The movie Anaconda, any type of I feel like in Anaconda, there was a scene where the snake took someone into the river and killed them. You know, that was stuck with me as a fearful death. But Davey, I would go with the smallest possible thing killing me, like a bee and a swarm of bees. My cousin recently told me a story about he was doing some work on a golf course, and one of the guys working with him hit a yellow jacket hive and got stung to where he ran 400 yards. And people were having to throw things on him to try to get these off, and nearly died. Was swelling up from all of the stings from the yellow jackets. That also stuck with me. So I'm going to go bees. A swarm of bees killing me. I'd be afraid of that.
That's pretty painful, Chad. I mean, in that case, I would just hope I'm allergic to a bee and it's just like one bee gets me. And then obviously you die from the impact after that. But just being swarmed to death, I'm thinking back, there was like hornets. There was like a hornet scene in the Hunger Games. And I'm just thinking that's just too much. I guess you would go out a lot quicker if it was a bunch of them just injecting venom into you.
No, it takes a long time. And that's the whole point. That guy ran 400 yards. So think about like that 400-yard mad dash trying to save your life versus a hippo just grabs me off the side of the bank and just takes me in the water. It's over.
Yeah. Also, if you're allergic to it and kills you, that's going to be a slower process.
Yeah.
I don't think it just stings you and you die from the allergic. The allergic reaction can take a while.
Yeah, don't you go to like anaphylactic shock or something?
Your throat can like close up. So then you're suffocating again.
Nope.
Going back to my fear of snakes. It all goes back to suffocation, asphyxiation. Not a fan. So yeah,
there's
I don't play that game.
A wildlife expert. I think his name is Paul Rosalie. He did it was like an episode for like Nat Geo back in the day, but he wore this suit. He spent all his time in South America out in the Amazon. And he literally like let this anaconda attack him. And while he's like wearing this suit pretty much to see how long he could go before he pretty much had to type out. And then they had the camera crew, other wildlife experts come and get the anaconda off of him. But he's a fascinating listen to. I know he's done like a couple of podcasts where he just talks about his trips, where he just goes on these voyages in the Amazon rainforest where no one's ever been. And it's just really fascinating, interesting character.
So I want to get into this. The great white, like the shark attack. I'd like to think that you go quickly with that, but I don't think that's the case. There's going to be a lot of pain involved. I don't think they just come in and, bite someone's head off and you're dead immediately.
Depends on the shark.
There's nibbling that's going on.
It depends on it depends on the shark. So I actually am friends with a marine biologist down here, and he says all the time,
so much
Kelly,
info.
don't worry. The sharks don't want to eat you. They just want to taste you. And when they realize they don't like you, they're going to leave you alone. So you might be right about the shark thing. They might just bite, like your leg, for example, and then you bleed out because they don't actually eat you or rip you limb from limb. That sounds really terrible, Chad.
Did you guys watch The Revenant with Leo DiCaprio?
Oh, yeah.
The bear attack in that one?
The grizzly, yep.
You could say that's another one I think back to and think, I would think a grizzly bear that's angry that goes after you would kill you quickly. But I'm not saying that movie's a documentary. But from what I saw from the bear attack in that one, it took quite a while. That scene seemed like it lasted about 45 minutes and did not even finish the job. And that left Leo's character in a lot of pain for a while. So I couldn't even say grizzly attack or polar bear or something that's going to kill you quickly.
What's the saying if it's in regards to bears? If it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lie down. If it's white, say goodnight.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Never heard that one, but now I know. Do you have not a marine biologist, but a zoologist friend also where you can fact check that, Kelly? No?
I do not. My dad lived in Montana for a long time, so they had a lot of black bears and a few grizzly bears. And I never heard any of that. I just heard whoever runs the slowest is the one that's going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, you don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the person next to you.
Well, my family laughs at me because every time we go anywhere into the mountains, I'm looking for bears. Like I saw some as a younger person one time, and I like to be like inside, looking for them. And they're like, if you see a bear, do you really know what to do? Are you going to be okay if the bear's angry or tries to attack you? I just kind of want to see him from a safe distance. I don't want to have to know my fight or flight response with the bear, but I'd like to see them from a safe distance. We're not a safe distance from the game tonight, so we need our picks for tonight's game. Kelly, I'm going to start with you and let you kind of dictate where we're going tonight with this just terrific Raiders-Chargers matchup that I'm sure Al Michaels is pumped to call tonight. We're going to get a lot of energy from him with these two teams at this point in the year.
Josh Jacobs being back for the Raiders is going to be very helpful for this team. Aiden O'Connell, let's be honest. Who knows what is up with Aiden O'Connell or Jimmy Garoppolo for that matter? And the common denominator there is this offensive line. They just allow them to get sacked beyond belief. If they can give him some time, which by all means, the defensive side of the Chargers is not anything to write home about, the Raiders could win this lovely Thursday night football game between two abysmal AFC West teams. On the flip side, Chargers, we're going to see what Easton Stick is made of. I will say this, against a Vegas secondary who I don't think has really tested well he could have a heyday. I actually went to some player props for tonight's game. I think we're going to see over 1.5 field goals from both field goal kickers. I think this is going to be a crappy game with both teams allergic to the red zone. And I do think that we see Aiden O'Connell be able to expose this Chargers secondary. This still looks like a really terrible 13-10 type final. So I do like the under as well, Chad.
But you do like the Raiders actually scoring this week, unlike last week?
Well, scoring field goals, that is. Unless, of course, Josh Jacobs can break one off.
By the way, Josh
Jacobs
Jacobs
very
an hour ago reported he is out. He will not play tonight for the Raiders. So
that is bad news for the Raiders.
Well, it's good news for me because my pick was going on the assumption that he was going to be out. We've talked a lot about Nebraska today, so why not go with a Cornhusker to score a touchdown? Amir Abdullah, plus 270, anytime touchdown. I'm going off the board a bit. He is 5th on the list of most likely to score tonight in this game. Give me Amir Abdullah to score. Zamir White and Amir Abdullah will split time at running back without Josh Jacobs. So I'm going to take Abdullah to score a touchdown tonight.
Kelly,
are you sticking with your bet, though, even though Jacobs ruled out an hour ago?
No, that makes sense. That's my fault. I should have checked it during the commercial break. I had heard that he was going to be a go, or they're going to try to make him a go. So the fact that he's ruled out basically just now makes the Aiden O'Connell over passing yards even more attractive to me, because he's going to have to throw the ball downfield. Now, if he's able to do so, you should surely be able to exploit this Chargers secondary.
For a game like this tonight, Kelly, would you say we're looking at two bad quarterbacks? So for the total, I feel everyone's going to be hammering the under. If you're Vegas, you're pretty much just hoping this is going to go over, right? For these types of games.
At this point in time, because the public is so caught up with these primetime unders, we've actually seen them start to go over, right? This one's actually ticked up. It looks like 35s are starting to hit. So I'm not surprised to see people thinking maybe this is going to be a 21-20 type final. I think this game is going to be really ugly, and we may see a turnover or two that results in a defensive score, thus putting it over the total. The problem is I can't trust either one of these teams with my money. And frankly, what are we doing here with Brandon Staley? We talked about it earlier. What kind of bonehead call is he going to make that costs the Chargers a win here? So I can't trust the Chargers either.
Well, and we talked about it earlier in the week. If they lose, look bad in this game, does he get fired? My answer is no, because why does he still have a job now? I mean, they were going to fire Brandon Staley in season. They've had plenty of chances to do it. They don't have Justin Herbert the rest of the way. They're just going to play it out. They're going to play out this final month, right? And then, Black Monday, he's going to be left without a job, and he'll be one of the guys fired. I'm curious, Kelly, how quickly, when you see a line, do you know, or are you convinced this is what Vegas wants to happen here? Like, on whatever side of it is, where this is what's good for Vegas based on this, and your antennas go up when you see that with certain lines.
Yeah, I would definitely say that what side, if you will, they're trying to bait money onto. And whether they would like to admit that they do that or not, they definitely do. That's why we see some of these trap lines week to week. This week's trap line, I'd have to say, is the New Orleans Saints, -6. Nobody wants any part of the Saints, especially not laying points against Tommy DeVito, the second coming of Tom Brady. I like the Saints this week. I laid the 6 earlier in the week. This one got bet up early. So the nice part is somebody agrees with me, but the square dog of the week is going to be the Giants +6. Now, is that going to translate to the field? I guess we're going to find out.
Giants +6, writing it down tomorrow. We'll talk more about all of the weekend's games tomorrow. Kelly, will you be back tomorrow after the show today? You're going to be back?
I will be back tomorrow.
Good. Great job. 3 hours in the books. Terrific work by you. We'll get more of Kelly's picks tomorrow. Got some good guests lined up for you as well. We'll get you ready for the weekend. Send you into what is close to maybe holiday break for a lot of you out there. Maybe a holiday weekend. We'll get you ready for it on tomorrow's show. Big thanks to everyone out there watching, listening, however you consume the show. We appreciate you. We're back at it tomorrow with more. This is Hot Mike across the OutKick Network.